Maybe, but we heard you anyway.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Christopher Lohr. I'm a planning manager at the City of Columbus Planning Division. And I'm going to go over a couple slides here, as I just noted, and then we'll get started with the meeting. So welcome to the Downtown Commission virtual hearing. The meeting is going to start here in a few moments at 8:30. Attendees are muted by default on meeting entry. You're going to be unmuted as appropriate. So please keep an eye on that. When you're called, you will be able to unmute yourself as well. If you have questions, you can send a message via WebEx chat to me, and I can try to help you out that way. You'll be required to have your video on if you are speaking or giving testimony for a particular case. The meeting is now being recorded as well as being streamed via YouTube. Comments received via the WebEx chat are not a part of the official public record. Next slide, please, Mark. So applicants and speakers, if you feel comfortable, you can turn off your video at this time. That helps keep things a little bit less distracting. And then you can turn it back on when it's your case and time to speak. We'll ask you to do that at that time. Speaker slips are required to be submitted no later than 2 hours prior to a virtual meeting. Staff has confirmed speaker slips were received with all speakers prior to the meeting, so applicants you automatically have a speaker slip essentially. But if you're a member of the public and would wish to speak, then you should have submitted that in advance. If you have not received confirmation on your speaker slip, you will not be called on to speak during the meeting. Next slide, please. Okay, and now just a little bit of the order of speaking. City staff will present the application materials for a given agenda item. The applicant will be sworn in and asked to present any additional materials. Any registered speakers from the public will be sworn in and provided 3 minutes to speak each. And then commissioners will discuss the case and ask questions if needed. We'll also be broadcasting the case materials up on WebEx, but all those materials were provided to the commissioners in advance and available online. So we're not going to be able to go through every page. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I might mute and unmute people as necessary just due to the technical nature of this meeting so that we can keep the feedback as minimal as possible, but try to keep the commissioners unmuted as much as possible. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Louis Taba, who's Stafford Downtown Commission, and Steve Whitman, the chair.
Steve, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, I can run with it here. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. This is, in a way, a kind of an experiment. We've done a little background stuff and practice, so hopefully it goes well. And we appreciate everybody's cooperation on this. First thing I would like to do is call the meeting to order. Second, I would like to have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting. If I could have a motion to that effect, please.
Motion to approve.
Okay, that's Bob and Danny, and I assume somebody is a second then. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, that and those opposed. Okay, that carries unanimously. The next order of business will be to swear in the staff. I would ask that I'm going to swear them in, and then I would ask that each of you staff members who have been sworn in identify yourself by name. First of all, would you raise your right hand? You swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If so, say I do.
I do.
Would you identify yourself as staff, please?
Louis Taba, planning staff.
Christopher Lohr, planning manager.
Okay, and that would be the two people who have been sworn in for staff. With that, let's do the roll call of all the commissioners who are present today, please. I'll start off. Steve Whitman. Roll with it, guys.
Jana Maniaci,
Danny
Ted
Powell.
Hardesty.
Michael Lush.
Tony Slanick.
And Danny Powmore.
Okay, Christopher, do you or Louis, do you have those names down? They're a little talking over each other.
So
It's Mike, it's Loversage, it's Lusk, it's Jana Mesios, and it's Danny Palmore and Steve Whitman.
So Otto Beatty is not here then, is that correct? He's
I
the
don't
only one.
see Otto at this time. So how many do we have? Oh, and I saw Tony Slanick on here earlier.
Tony's here.
I have 7 commissioners.
Okay, so you've got the count on that, and we will declare that we have a quorum.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on. We'll go straight to the business, and I will hand it over to Louis.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Appreciate everybody being here this morning. Just a couple of notes before we start. I will be reading over the staff reports, and in order to save a little time, I'm going to be reading an abbreviated version of the staff reports. I won't get into the details of the buildings themselves. I will indicate the general introduction to the proposal, how the guidelines relate to the proposal, and then whether they meet the guidelines or not. We did not receive any comments or any speaker slips, Steve, so we don't have to worry about that. And then like I said, I'll be reading the materials. Mark Roston is one of our staff planners. He's going to be handling all of the visuals as part of this meeting. He'll bring up the staff report visually for you. He'll bring up the materials. So if you need him to go to a certain page in the materials, please just ask him to do that. The meeting is going to be 2 hours. It's going to end at 10:30. Since this is a virtual meeting, we're going to try and have that hard deadline at the end. So we're going to try to get to every agenda item that we can, but if we don't, you'll automatically be on next month's agenda. And with that, I guess we can start. So the first application is 2003-019, 330 Rush Alley.
Now, Louis, you're showing on your agenda the Peninsula presentation to begin with. Is that part of this first application?
That is correct. And so what I'm going to do is for the first 3 cases, C1, C2, and C3, we're going to have a presentation on the SCIOTO Peninsula by Guy Worley. So if you can unmute Guy Worley, and if you can bring up that presentation, Mark.
Hello, everybody. It's Guy Worley. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Guy.
Thank you, Guy.
Good morning, everybody. Hey, I want to thank the commission and Louis and Chris for conducting this meeting. This is a first. And so far, it's been really cool that we're able to do this. So thank you.
And
So I'm going to take the 60
first
seconds.
speaker in this mode.
Well, it's nice to be first. So I'm going to take about 60 seconds just to kind of reorient everybody on the project, and then turn it over to Daimler, Flaherty and Collins, and Rockbridge to talk about their individual projects. But as you're aware, the Peninsula is the development that we're here to discuss, and we could go to the next slide. Do I do that or you do? Okay, thank you, Louis. So this is a mixed-use development. Again, just to refresh your memories, it's 2 million square feet of office, 1,800 residential units, 400 hotel keys, parking is needed, and up to 200,000 square feet of retail. If you go back, and thank you. But we're here to talk about the first 4 buildings today of this development, which is a 240,000 square foot office building by Daimler, 550 units of residential, of which there are 3 buildings. And today we're here to talk about 2 buildings, which would be about 330 units. That's for Flaherty and Collins is the developer for that. Rockbridge is developing a new hotel of 197 keys. We're going to build a 1,400 space parking garage. We'll be coming to the commission this summer for that project. And in the first phase, there'll be about 45,000 square feet of retail. Go to the next slide, please. Just to kind of orient yourselves again to the first phase, we're talking right there on Bell Street, directly across from COSI and Dorian Green, with the office building there on the left, hotel in the middle, and then the first 2 residential buildings there on the right. If you go to the next slide. Thank you. And this is just kind of orienting you. Again, this is what it'll look like in that first phase. This is a very high density site, 8-story office building, 8-story hotel, 11-story, and a 6-story residential buildings there to the left, facing the city skyline. And basically that's an overview of the project. I don't want to spend more time on this than I'll let the developers speak about their individual projects.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so the first item is 330 Rush Alley. It's the first of those 3 developments.
Hey, Louis, this is Bob White. Would you like me to present now?
Well, I was going to read the staff report. Mark, if you could pull up the map. All right. So this is the general location of the proposed development on the SCIOTO Peninsula. The applicant is proposing to construct an 8-story office building at the northwest corner of the intersection of Bell Street and Rush Alley. The 232,000 square foot building will cover the entire parcel and provide 2,500 square feet of first floor retail. A total of 884 parking spaces will be dedicated for this project in one of the new city parking garages. The applicant will be returning at a later date for graphics approval. The guidelines state that buildings on corner lots should be designed to address both streets, and all buildings should be built to a 0 setback. Buildings should be of high quality and durability and should incorporate traditional masonry materials. Facades facing parks and other civic spaces should demonstrate a high level of design and should minimize negative impacts such as sound and light. The proposal generally meets the guidelines with regards to building design. And then, yeah, we can hand this over to the presenter now.
Good morning, everyone. This is Bob White with the Daimler Group.
May I interrupt for one moment? Do the applicants want to be sworn in? Are we going to do that one at a time? Does Christopher do that, or do I do that? Excuse me, Bob, here for a second. We're working on procedure here. Louis, do we want to swear in the applicant or the speakers?
Yes, please.
Okay, Bob, would you raise your right hand? Bob White. Hello, Bob.
Yep,
Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? So say I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
You are perfectly fine, Steve. Thank you, everyone. Just moving my computer around. The sun might be blinding everyone off my bald head, so I apologize. We're excited at the Daimler Group to be back in front of you to continue our quest for additional downtown office space after the successful conclusion of both 250 High and 80 on the Commons, both projects that that the commission approved previously and are now 100% leased. We turned our focus to the Peninsula for our next phase of downtown office space. A couple months ago, I would have presented a case to you that this larger floor plate, 30,000 square foot floor plate was much needed due to density of office users and people wanting to put more people per square foot in office space and provide more collaboration areas and all kinds of things, which may or may not be the trend currently. So, but we do still feel very strongly that that this blank canvas of new office space with larger floor plates will be conducive to companies and tenants as they try to figure out the new norm relative to their office and housing their staff and employees. So we've partnered with Moody Nolan Architects to design this 8-story, roughly 240,000 square foot office building. You can see on the screen materials of stone, brick, metal panel, glass, providing some outdoor balcony locations for downtown skyline views. And this is the largest speculative office offering that Daimler has embarked upon in the history of our company. So we're incredibly excited about this and prepared to continue moving this forward pending commission approval. So maybe we'll turn it back to any questions and not take any more time.
We have had a chance to review the drawings. I'm talking to the commission members at this point. Are there any questions about specifics?
I have a question.
Anna, please.
I was wondering, it looks like your main entry to this building is on the south elevation. And I'm sure that there's a good reason for that, but I'm wondering on the east elevation, which is a very prominent facade, if you thought about ways to engage and have entries into retail and use that street as a prominent pedestrian thoroughfare for that building.
Yes, we did consider that. And so just real quick, the rationale or reasoning behind the entry along Rush Alley was multiple fold. One is more proximate to our parking structure, which is just to the west. And so as office tenants navigate from the garage on the streetscape to our building, wanted to try to put that entry as close as reasonably possible. We also really were excited about engaging with the hotel immediately to our south and some of the cross collaboration opportunities we think that exist with the hotel use relative to the amenities that it'll offer with rooftop bars and other things, and then preserving, as you mentioned, maybe some of the opportunities for retail storefronts along Bell Street. Also, just with drop-offs and other things with, didn't want to maybe have that kind of main function of front entry, kind of cluttering Bell and other things. So we were excited about the location of the entry.
Okay, thank you.
Are there questions for the applicant? Thing for the applicant. The front shows 2 stories. Is that limestone along the front then, and along the Bell Street side, and looks like it wraps and it goes about 2 stories up on the elevation?
That's correct. That's a limestone base.
Good. Nice. Any other questions from anybody?
Steve, is this for final approval?
I believe it is. Yes. Is that correct, Louis?
Yes, this is for final approval.
Yes, it's for final approval.
Could we have some kind of a presentation about the design and materials and things that we normally talk about?
Well, it's in the package. Would you like to have a question? Please go ahead and ask away.
Wow.
Yeah, Bob, I guess we came from conceptual a couple months ago.
Right.
And happy to address any questions, or I can turn it to maybe Craig Rakowski or with Moody Nolan or Tucker Bohm for any more detailed elements that you want to better understand.
Specific questions, Bob?
No, I don't have specific questions.
I know it's a big project, and I hear you. This is a request for final approval.
If you would like a presentation, they can provide a presentation, sure.
Well, that's what we've always done. I didn't realize we weren't going to do that.
Well, we had for the sake of time, since we had 15 items, we had indicated one presenter and have kind of short presentations, and if there were questions, they could answer them. But if you want a presentation, we could do that. I mean, so if Bob, if your team wants to provide a presentation, go ahead. We'll try and navigate the slides for you.
Okay. I might try to engage either Craig Rakowski or Tucker Bohm. We can do that. You're able to unmute them, Lewis?
Yeah, please, they should turn on their video as well.
Okay.
And they will need to be sworn in as well. Craig, okay. And is there another one? Is there a Tucker Boom as well?
I'm here. Yep.
Tucker, you up?
Can you hear me?
Okay. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth, nothing but the truth? So say I do.
I do.
I do.
And would you identify yourselves, please? For the record.
I'm Craig Rutowski with Moody Nolan Architects.
Tucker Bohm with the Daimler Group.
Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead, fellas.
Craig, do you want to talk through design?
Yes, I can. Mark, are you going to pull up the slides that we submitted? I think Bob was maybe looking for some more details on the building. Or do we just want to work off this rendering? Work off this rendering. So we consider this building a four-sided building. I know that Bob went in great detail why we located the entry on the south side. We treated really all four sides as very visible. Both the east and west, we do have entries that can be accessed for either maybe public, depending on where retail gets located, or for future tenants to the office space. The first two floors, we treat it as the base of the building. We're using a stone material. We're proposing limestone. And the upper floors are all based upon either metal, which is that gray material you'll see, which is a metal composite panel, or brick. The way we treat it, the punched openings, is kind of more in a contemporary version of an industrial building. We've got mullions in our space, give some kind of a historic reference to a warehouse building. We do have balconies that are on the side that faces downtown for the office users. The space that you see, oh, okay, here we go. Hold on, the floor plan. The upper floors, we do have curtain walls, so those two large sections of glass are total combination of vision glass and spandrel glass. Kind of cap off the building at those 2 points. The service area, we tried to minimize so it didn't have a big impact on the elevation. That's actually on the alley that's opposite of Rush Alley. So that is on the north side of the building. Kind of we tucked the generator and transformer underneath the building to have less of an impact on the elevations of the building.
And the windows, are those, what are the windows colors? Are they black
Yes, they're black.
frames and clear glass?
Clear glass, they are tinted. So the glass we propose is, if you're familiar with the building that we just did across from Ohio Health for their corporate office building, it's that glass that we're proposing. It has a slight, it does have a slight tint to meet energy requirements.
Where, I'm sorry, which building is that across from
It's
Ohio?
by Riverside.
Oh, okay.
New corporate office.
Okay. Oh, I got you. Okay. Okay. Are there other questions? You've got the lighting that you're proposing is in your submission as well, I see.
Could you repeat that, Bob? I'm sorry.
I said the lighting that you have proposed is in your submission that I saw.
Yes, sir.
I have a question back to the windows. The mullions for the windows do they have some depth to them? Are they applied or are they?
They're true mullions, so it's a window wall system, so it's not just applied muttons.
Great.
There is a little depth to it, not a lot, but there is a little depth.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
Are there other questions?
This is Mike Lusk. I have a question. I'm looking at sheet A303, the north elevation where your service entrance is, and I see that you have some chain link fence. Could you talk a little bit about that? We don't normally see chain link fence on a high quality building.
Could you pull up that elevation? Mark, who's ever running this presentation? Thank you. You know, Mike, that maybe is a mislabel on our part. We do not want chain link fence at that location. I think it'll be more of a picket type fence. It's just a gate off the service area. So we maybe mislabeled that on the elevation. So we would change it from a chain link to a picket fence.
If there's a specific page that you want to look at on the share, please let us know.
It's the fifth sheet in that section.
Yeah, Mike, that clearly is shown and labeled as chain link. That is an error, and we'll revise that if the commission's agreeable to it, to a vertical picket fence.
That's good to hear.
Okay, are there any other questions from the commission? Hearing that, could I have a motion from one of the commissioners to approve?
I move to approve. Mike Lusk.
Mike, okay, is there a second, please?
Second.
Jana, is that Jana?
Yes.
Are there any other questions? Are there any questions from anybody in the audience? I don't know if anybody else is tuned in. Hearing none, we'll call. All those in favor of approval, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Are any opposed? Okay, hearing none, that motion is approved. Now, Louis, before we move on, do you have and Christopher, do you have what you need for this case?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, good. With that, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Let's move on to the next case, please.
Do we want an individual roll call for the vote?
It's up to you. You guys are doing the process. I think we heard everybody voted aye and there are no nays. Is that correct?
Yeah, but Christopher, is that okay?
It's up to you. You tell us.
I think we're okay with that question posed of whether there are any nays. We heard none. All are in favor. It's unanimous.
Sounds good. All right.
Let's move on to the next one then.
Thank you. Case number 2, 2003-020. This is 77 Bell Street. The applicant is proposing a 132,700 square foot, 8-story hotel with street level retail and restaurant uses. This is the location. A separate 2,750 square foot single story market building is located on the southwest quadrant of the site. The building has an L shape with a pedestrian alley running north-south through the project. The applicant will be returning at a later date for graphics approval. There is no parking on site, rather parking will be provided at the nearby parking garage. The review of the guidelines is the same as the first building, and the proposal generally meets the guidelines with regards to building design. With that, Steve, if you can swear in the presenters.
Would all those who wish to present please identify yourself? Who's here from Rockbridge? Ben?
Ben Pearson.
Okay, you're the guy then, right?
I'm the guy. Why don't we swear in Nicole Nathan, Tobias Stroh, and Chris Rupp as well? It might make it easier to do all of them.
Good. I'm going to swear you all in, and then I'll have you give your name for Louis and Christopher. You swear, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So say, I do.
I do.
I do.
Okay, would you please identify yourselves then, real quick?
Ben Pearson, Rockbridge.
Chris Rupp with RBHD.
Nicole Nathan with Johnson Nathan Stroh.
Tobias Stroh with Johnson Nathan Stroh.
Thank you very much. Louis, go ahead.
No, the presenters can go ahead at this point.
Okay, presenters, go ahead.
Sure. This is Ben Pearson, Senior Vice President at Rockbridge. Thank you to the Commission, to the City, CDDC, and Guy Worley for their participation and support. As Guy shared earlier, the hotel project site sits at the center of the Peninsula Master Development in Phase 1, and the project will be positioned as a local independent hotel and intended as the heartbeat of the overall development. The hotel is designed as a central gathering place to bring together guests, our adjacent users in the office and residential and the community. The project, as stated, is 8 stories, including 197 guest rooms, approximately 10,000 square feet of meeting space, 9,000 square feet of retail, and multiple food and beverage outlets, including a destination restaurant, coffee experience, lobby bar, and a rooftop bar. The design reflects an urban project with an activated streetscape, including an alley, a courtyard, supported by that ground floor retail, our hotel outlets, and an alley pickup window. As you can see in the submittal, the building has an articulated exterior and makes use of quality materials throughout, including multiple masonry choices. So with that, I'll hand it off to Nicole Nathan to walk you through the exterior design and the architecture, and certainly can take questions at any time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. So as you're seeing here on the screen, this is the rendering from Bell Street. The intent was to create an articulated mass that breaks down the scale to some degree. So you can see here that we have sort of 2 different main brick materials on the front, and then this articulated vertical section in the center there over the main entry. The building steps back a little bit on the right-hand side, allowing for an upper deck. And then as it moves down Rush Alley towards Main Street, the massing steps down to meet Main Street. You can go to
maybe slides 32 and 33. Louis and Christopher have the full renderings. May be useful here.
Thank you. That's great. Thanks. So you can see the activation on the street with the starting at the far left-hand side, you can see the gray brick there. This is all part of the hotel massing, and below the gray brick is the restaurant. There's a main entry there where you see a lot of light flooding out onto the street. And then as you come down towards this corner, we're moving into the coffee shop and some retail here. And then turning the corner, there's an entrance to the fitness. The idea is that that can be a shared amenity. And then extending down Rush Street, there is entry to a very active alley space. And then continuing down the street there, as I mentioned, we meet Main Street. So the building itself is, as I said, 2 different brick colors. We have sort of a factory-inspired window relating to the historic nature of the neighborhood and the bottoms down here where there was a great deal of industry. And so we felt that that really tied to the context of the neighborhood. We wanted to create a place that feels like it belongs here along the riverbed and really integrates itself into the neighborhood. Again, this building is at the center of the development and really starts to become a hearth for the overall SCIOTO Peninsula development. And it is a place where locals can come and travelers can come as well. And we want that to be accessible to both. It's a 24/7 operation, has the unique quality of a hotel being a place where everyone can come and go and feel like they are part of this overall space. The step back on the top allows for some great rooftop space. We have a extended shade device up there and also a bar at the top. So the views from up there back to the city are pretty spectacular. And really you can see looking to the west, the sunset over Franklinton, and really get a sense of the context from up there. The massing, as I mentioned, is broken up a little bit to make the scale a little more humane. And then as you look here from the bird's eye view, looking back at the project, this is kind of looking from Main Street or above Main Street. You can see how the massing steps down to the street. We have a lot of retail right along the street corner at this corner that's closest to us here in the rendering. On the right-hand side, you'll see the market building. So this is also a retail space. The intent here is that this really becomes a spot where many people can come and connect with the space. So you can see that the hotel rooms have some terraces that come off of them as the building steps back. You're seeing at the very top, the rooftop bar, and you can see that the sort of factory style window is occurring all along this mass. It has a very regulated mass on the main part of the building, and then the street level steps back slightly to allow larger sidewalk access and for outdoor cafes and really extending the pedestrian experience. You can see here in the center where the alley really opens up to the sidewalk, and that is a strong connection and an important part of the project to create an active alley space there. That's really a sense of discovery. That alley connects then to this muse that comes between the market building and the hotel leg that extends out to Main Street. So you have a variety of spots where you can penetrate the block and really engage in the spaces. We've got some awnings at the street and some more vertical articulation in the windows there, really creating a strong sense of display for any retail opportunities. And then some articulation in the brick in the market building that really brings it down to the pedestrian scale and activates that Main Street.
What do you mean by the articulation in the brick, please?
You can see here on this little red market building, you can see some texture happening there between the, along the facade on Market Street. And that is really some, right here, some brick detailing where we have brick set in an angle to create some texture, additional texture there, reinforcing the space.
See it.
And some really large, almost garage style scale openings there that just bring in a lot of light and allow the activity inside to help activate the street.
Am I seeing on-street parking, or are they valet areas? Are they both? What's going on between the curb and the buildings and around the hotel and the market?
On the east side, there will be a valet drop-off. On the other, if you go to the other side of the rendering, we'll have a valet lane on Bell Street. And then facing the west side, that would be metered parking.
Thank you.
This is Danny. On the rooftop, there is what material is that? Is that brick like the small buildings, or is that a different type of material where all the people are congregating? Yeah, up here at the top.
That's brick. So there's a kind of a terracotta color masonry on the facade, and then also the stair overrun that will have an integrated fireplace, which actually has changed slightly from this rendering. It's a darker brick there as well.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about the north facade. I don't know if you could bring that slide up.
This is the north facade.
Right there, yes. My question is that on this rendering, that portion of wall that, that is blank, it seems to be a bay, unless I'm reading it incorrectly, it seems to be a little bit west of the actual elevation drawing. And I'm wondering, because there's a hotel room behind that, if there's any opportunity to make that more transparent, because it seems that that northeast corner is such a interesting, possibility to have spectacular views of the downtown and the Veterans Memorial. So I'm just wondering, was there a functional reason to leave that blank? And had you considered maybe having more transparency at that northeast corner?
Sure. So there's a guest room here that is the two windows at the corner and that blank part of the facade. And so just from a functionality standpoint, we felt like that break there was worked really well. And we are also working and considering an integrated masonry detail here on this vertical mass that would include potentially some signage that would be integrated into the masonry.
Okay, so how we see it on the rendering, the one that's up here now, that is the configuration.
Yes.
That is the final configuration.
It is the final configuration. There will be a little bit more detail in the brick there, though.
Yeah, I think that is a good idea, because I do think that that is an important corner. And if functionally you cannot have windows there, anything to enliven it and give it a unique character, I think would be valuable.
Great. I think that's a great comment. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Are there other comments?
Yeah, this is Bob. Could you talk a little bit about the sawtooth roof on the market building? It seems, could you talk a little bit about that?
So this building, we wanted to do something really special with it. It's really a single story building. And we wanted it to feel very unique amongst these sort of blocks of architecture around it. And we were inspired by some old factory and boathouse architecture. And we took sort of a unique approach to it based on some of that inspiration, and wanted to do something a little bit unexpected, sort of a modern take on what that could look like. And so we came up with this idea of doing these sort of peaks that are slightly different and reflect that. It also has a little bit of the sort of factory inspiration as well, in that you sometimes see a sawtooth roof like that with a skylight or glazing along the short side, which would be the side away from us, which we do have here. So you can see that band of glazing there on the roof. Each one of those sawtooths has glazing on the end to bring light into this building. So it brings kind of a natural light right into this market building, which is a direct inspiration from sort of the old factory warehouses that did that sort of thing to bring in natural daylight.
I think ultimate user here will impact that as we proceed down, and depending on who the user for that space may be, that will certainly impact their need for light and things like that. But it does provide a unique feature to that building.
Could you walk through very quickly what the window frame, they're metal, obviously. Are they black? It looks like black on the hotel portion. It looks like white or silver or something on the marketplace. Can you walk us through very quickly what your window frames are and the glass as well, please?
Yes, and I think that that's an error on the rendering itself. All of the windows should be a dark. So we have a black window as our window material. It's an aluminum or steel window. Aluminum for the main part of the building.
In black then, huh?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And is it clear glass?
Yes, clear glass.
Are there any other questions from the commission, please?
The description talks about using IFAS on some of it. Could you just show us where that's going to be?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Using what?
The EVIS.
Yes.
Is it not identified on the elevations in the set? Can you open the? I mean, there's a portion mostly west facing in the recessed courtyard portion of the hotel. So what you can kind of see in the center top here, the light gray behind the mass would be the eaves. So sort of in the recessed portion in the inside of the building.
Thank you.
Any other questions we can answer for you all?
I have one other question. With the interior pedestrian alley that you're creating, part of that looks like it is, there's a roof over it because of the hotel, and then other portions look like they are open to the outside. And I'm wondering, the portion that is, roofed over by the hotel, how are you handling that? How are you lighting in there, or any certain special treatment or steam treatment? Or I'm just curious how that is, how you're articulating that.
Yeah, I think some of the audio just dropped a little bit, but yes, there will be lighting integrated in the roof portion of that covered alley. And then it all depends a little bit on the retail functions that will come in on mainly the retail space that's located along Main Street. It also has openings and access from the Muse or the private alley. And there's also other retail spaces on the other side of the alley animating that. For example, there's a gear garage, we call it, which is another retail space inside the hotel portion.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I had to switch computers. I went off. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Have we? I think we need to look to some action on this. Are there any more questions or comments from anybody? Hearing none, could one of the commissioners offer a motion, please?
Move approval.
I motion to
Okay.
approve.
Bob.
From Bob, and a second, please.
Second.
Anna, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? All those in favor of approval say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? If so, say nay. Okay, Lewis, that motion carries. It's unanimous. There's no opposition. Can we go on to the next case, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
The next case, agenda item number 3, is 20-03-021 319 West State Street. Mark will pull that up. I'll start reading the staff report as he does that. The applicant is proposing an 11-story and 6-story building at this location. Materiality on the buildings will be brick, glass, metal panel, and fiber cement board. Uses will consist of retail, amenity space, and residential on the first 2 floors with residential units above. Rooftop amenity space will also be provided for tenants. There will be 2 skywalks as part of the project, one connecting the 2 buildings across a private street and the other connecting the western building to a parking structure. The applicant will be returning at a later date for graphics approval. There is no parking on site, rather parking will be provided at the nearby parking garages. The guidelines state that building materials should be of high quality and durability. Facade spacing parks and civic spaces should demonstrate a high level of design. Skywalks are generally not supported because street level pedestrian activity is critical to the downtown's quality of life and energy. In cases where a skywalk is supported, its design and colors should be such that it is muted, its sides should be at least 50% transparent, and its overall presence subdued so as not to draw attention to itself. The proposal generally meets the guidelines with regards to building design. And with that, you can swear in the applicants.
Okay. Would all those who are going to testify on this case please identify yourself?
This is Brandon.
Brandon, anybody else with your group, or are you on your
I'd like to add Mike Johnson, who's also with Flaherty & Collins, and then Brad Parrish and Heather Rother from our call.
Okay, would all 4 of you then raise your right hand? Hands. You swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
Okay, would you please each identify yourself then so that the staff can get the names, please, for the record. Brandon, start with you.
Sure. This is Brandon Bogan, Vice President of Design and Pre-Construction for Flaherty & Collins Properties.
Mike Johnson, Flaherty & Collins Properties.
Brad Parrish, Arch All.
Heather Rother, Archall. I can't share my video for some reason. I apologize.
Okay, we've got all your names. Thanks very much. Take it from there.
All right. Can we pull up the rendering potentially?
If Heather can't get her video working, we're going to ask that she not speak, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Well, first off, this is Brandon. First off, we truly appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning via WebEx. We've been doing lots of these in this time. This is exciting. This is our first project here in Columbus, and we're truly excited to be here and be a part of this development and future be a long-term part of this community. Overall, this project isn't the core piece of it is to bring some residential living within the SCIOTO Peninsula development, and we're truly excited about it. So what we're proposing within this, as Guy mentioned earlier, ultimately the residential component will be 550 units. However, what we're showing today is the first 2 buildings, what we call Building 1 and Building 2, which will comprise of approximately 330 units. So these, as you can see from this corner rendering here, this is basically at the corner of State and Bell. And what we have here, this is called Building 2. This building is an 11-story structure. It is residential from basically level 2 and above. There are portions of residential on grade as we walk around the building. The portion you can see right here at the corner is predominantly retail, and the retail runs along State Street. And then in the background there, the gray mass just beyond is the 6-story building, which is the other residential building. And the makeup of the units, we've got approximately 113 units in Building 1, and we've got approximately 213 in building 2. And the building is set up to provide luxury market rate housing for the area. These are going to be high-end apartment homes, providing a luxury environment. There'll be a combination of amenities throughout the building. We'll have co-working spaces, and we'll have lobby spaces and fitness spaces. One of the really cool, exciting components we have on this is we are going to have a rooftop pool that is basically at the 11th story here. Kind of in between the masses there would be the pool area, and then we've got a sky deck up there as well as some clubroom space. The buildings are interconnected by skywalks, and that's truly to provide access to the parking. As far as our developments, our renters typically demand to have parking directly located, and obviously with the way this development's set up and the way CDC has put it together, done a nice job of creating a co-located parking to basically to supply parking for all the different uses of the hotel, the office, and our building, which works great. However, we would like to have a connection to make sure that our residents can come within a secure way from their parking all the way into the structure. So we have a skywalk that opens up and connects from the parking structure into building 1, and that'll actually be an open air structure going across Starling. And then it passes through building 2 and then connects to an enclosed sky bridge connecting over to building 1. And as you can see here in this view, it's kind of a bird's eye aerial from the southwest corner, seeing all the buildings and seeing how it overlooks out to the amazing park that's there today. And really, the architecture of this building is set up to create views, create a nice, unique environment all the way along here, putting the massing of the predominantly 11-story structure at the corner of State and Bell, and then stepping backwards from there. That way, we have some nice courtyard spaces, and we've created massing that makes sense within the overall development. The architecture of the buildings is set up to be a modern, very modern approach. Combination of materials, if you've seen within the packet, of composite materials, metal panel products, and masonry products. Very durable materials throughout. We do have commercial grade vinyl windows specified throughout that will be black framed. And then it goes down as you get to the retail storefronts. Those are aluminum storefront that is black as well. Overall, we've created a massing that breaks this up. Obviously, this is a very large structure, but we've been able to create different masses that allows us to give different feels throughout and create a lot of variety and interest throughout. This view here, as you're looking along State Street, shows the view there of building 1, which is the westernmost building, and then the parking structure in the background. And as you can see, all these areas that are facing State Street will be set up with retail all along there, with the opportunity to have lots of different retail patrons that'll be engaged within that space, and creating a very vibrant and exciting retail storefront along there that'll keep the pedestrian activity very active along State Street, even though we have the internal walkways for our resident connections between the building over to the parking. We do expect that our residents will be outside quite a bit, kind of utilizing this whole development. And while they will use the sky bridge at times, that'll be predominantly just going back and forth to their vehicles. We do have balconies on pretty much every unit throughout. These are anticipated to be steel balconies with glass handrails that'll be prefabricated and mounted to the building, creating a very nice, clean aesthetic for those that blends with the overall architecture of the development. We have created some internal courtyard spaces, that some of which are more public and some of which are more private. As you can see here between the two buildings, when you go back through there, it kind of has a knuckle area between the U of building 1. That area will be open up to the new proposed Main Street, whereas the courtyard space within the 11-story building is a more private courtyard that has other amenities for the residents. Hopefully that gives you a pretty good overview of the building. Obviously, this will be a little bit easier in person to do so, but I hope I've been able to convey everything for you. But we're definitely happy to walk through any questions you have, and hopefully happy to move this development forward, because we're very excited about it.
Could you just walk us through quickly the materials? You've talked about the windows, the materials. We can see we're looking at renderings here, and just walk us through that real quick, if you would, on both buildings.
Sure. We've got quite a few different materials on the buildings. The material palette is basically made up of our glazing systems, which are commercial grade vinyl windows. They are black colored. We have storefront glazing at the retail areas and the amenity areas on a grade level. There will be a black storefront system. And then for the masonry of the building, we've got 3 different bricks selected that will be kind of used in combinations around the two structures. And then we have composite panel systems on the project. These are a Nichiha panel system, as well as a Symbrit panel system that'll be utilized on the buildings. The gray mass you're seeing there right in front of you, that is the Nichiha panel systems, and the white mass as well. When we get around to the corner of the 11th story, we do have some brick structures facing all of Bell. And then some areas in there, one of the big things within this is we obviously want to create as much window openings as possible. So we've punched very large windows into these units to keep lots of natural light within the space. We will also have some metal panel systems within the project. Most of those are tucked in to open up the spaces and connect to the window wall systems. Be a little bit easier to walk through from elevations, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of an overview. Is that what you were looking for?
If you go to page 53, 54, 55 of the package, you can see a nice collection of the materiality.
Okay, good.
And here. So the next couple pages, just flip through.
Okay.
Okay.
Are there questions from applicants, please?
Brandon, this is Bob. Not too excited about giant vinyl windows, but do you have experience with vinyl windows at this scale, particularly dark color like black? Is it going to hold up?
We do. We've utilized the majority of our projects, residentially wise, other than high-rise projects, do utilize vinyl windows. These are our commercial grade. It's the V300 series. The Quaker is our basic design product, and it is black. We've utilized very dark colors, whether that be a black or a dark gray or a bronze color, on multiple projects. We've got them in Kansas City, here in Indianapolis. We've got them in Northern Indiana. We've got quite a few throughout the country.
Thank you.
Are there other questions?
Yeah, this is Mike Lusk. The Sky Bridge, is it open to the public, or is it secured only to residents?
It will be secured to residents only.
All right, thank you.
And what floor is that? On second floor, or is that higher than that? I can't.
It is actually connecting through at what we call the podium level, which is on top of the second level. There are some areas that kind of tuck in with a mezzanine space within there, but officially it's at the second level, which is on this building is about 24 feet coming across the podium above the retail space.
So it's, in effect, it's on the third floor. Is that right?
Depending on which section of the building you're looking at, yes. Along State Street, it's going to look like it's connecting through at the second floor just because we have a very tall first floor volume there. But when you look at this building here, when it tucks in with residential, because the residential spaces are 10-foot floor to floor versus the 24 at the retail space.
Okay, good. Are there any other questions for the applicant?
I have two quick questions. Okay, so my first is really a comment, and I think that because you will have the skywalk and that street that is between the east building and the west building, I know you talked about being very conscious about activating it for pedestrians, and I do think that's important because you also have your utility access for trash and other things there as well. So I think it will be very important, whether it's with landscaping or I don't know, whatever you want to do to just, or transparencies there to make sure that that is activated and you can make the most of that street that you're creating between the east and west buildings. And the other comment is that on the east building, it looks like you have one of the buildings is lower than the others. And I'm wondering, because it looks like a lot of residences will look out onto that roof. And I'm wondering if there might over time be any interest in maybe creating a roof garden or something that is maybe organic or visually interesting, because you're going to have a lot of apartments that are going to look over onto that lower roof, and it's a pretty large expanse.
There will be a lot of units to look over to that roof. We've contemplated different options for that. At this time, it is just a roof across there because we need to have all the space for the mechanical units for the residential units below up there on that roof space. But we'll definitely take into consideration of how to make sure we create something that's visually appealing to look down onto there. In regards to your comment along what we're calling Main Street between the buildings there, we're pretty excited about this opportunity. That's one of the things we've been working with Guy and Amy and the rest of the group at CDDC on, and all the developers have, of creating this new street along there and how to create it as this vibrant space. We're very excited about it. We will have residential units that walk out to it, as well as kind of that inside component to the U that is a courtyard space which engages right out to it. But that whole opportunity there is something we're pretty excited about. We view Columbus, you guys have such an amazing community there that is very active, and we see people utilizing these skybridges, like I said, to get back and forth to vehicles. But other than that, they're going to be out and moving around developments and connecting all the things that are already there in Columbus and all the things that will be as part of this SCIOTO Peninsula development.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant, please?
I have a question. This is Bob. I have a question that maybe I should have asked much earlier, but maybe Louis can answer this. Is this development following the downtown streetscape, or is it creating its own streetscape environment, or what are the public spaces tying all this together?
Well, these are existing streets, aren't they? Bell Street, State Street, Capitol.
Yeah, but they're not. I'm talking about streetscape. You know, the planting and the
Did we look at any kind of plan for this? I kind of have in my mind that we did, and it might have been 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, you obviously have the park to the east of this. It's huge. But you're talking about kind of tying the sidewalk and the fronts of the buildings together in some form or another that is consistent. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, we have downtown streetscape standards, and I'm just wondering if this whole development is either following those or creating something different or unique for it, or is each project doing its own thing?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
this is Amy Taylor with the Columbus Downtown Development Corporation.
Okay, Amy, go ahead.
I might be able to answer this question. We are following the downtown streetscape and adding to it with some key enhancements. So we're working with the Department of Public Service and as Brandon mentioned, all 3 developers will be have been participating in this conversation, taking the base standards for the downtown streetscape and in key areas adding additional pavers such as a tabletop review and some key other areas. We're just taking what you have and adding it to places that the city may not look to have that streetscape, but the developers wanted it to be. And then we'll be coming to you with the new private drive next month.
Okay, so in other words, when this plan for the streetscape gets done, it will apply to all of these buildings through this project then, right?
Correct.
Okay. Could you kindly, when you have that kind of put together, and if you want to do it conceptually, we're happy to look at it too. When you get that, could you bring that back to us, please?
Absolutely. What might make sense is when we come next month for the private drive, that we also show what the public streets will look like so you can see it in context.
That would be great.
That's perfect. Very good. Okay, well,
Thank you.
That's a good question, and I'm glad you guys are all on top of that, Amy. Okay, good. Any other questions? Okay, could I have a motion from someone, please?
I move to approve. This is Ted.
Ted, thank you. Is there a second, please?
Second. This is Danny.
Danny, second. Okay, are there any other questions from anybody? Anything from the applicant? Anything from public, from the audience? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Hearing none, this is approved. And Louis, you have the record for that. And so let's move on to the next case. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
This looks great. Looking forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
Huge. It's really terrific.
All right, sorry, Bob, I didn't answer your question. I was having trouble with the mute button there a second ago. So the next case is C5. It's 20-03-016. It's 123 East Spring Street. And this building is not a historically listed building, but it does follow our historic resources guidelines. I mean, it would fall under our historic resources guidelines. So the applicant is proposing to renovate an existing two-story structure at the corner of Spring Street and North Lizelle Street. The first floor of the facade will be significantly modified to create a larger storefront. The second floor windows will be replaced. Windows will be added to the south and west elevation, and an awning will be added to the north elevation above the storefront. Finally, the brick will be patched, repaired, and finished with a German schmear. The applicant will be returning at a later date for graphics approval. The historic resources sections of the guidelines state that building owners are encouraged to conserve historic buildings. Staff has concerns regarding the application of German schmear to the building over the existing brickwork and how that affects the building's essential character. While the proposal generally meets the guidelines with regards to ground floor uses and storefronts, it does not meet the guidelines with regards to historic resources because of the application of German schmear. And with that, you can swear in the applicants.
Would all those who wish to testify identify yourself, please, for the applicants?
Hi, this is Eric Batteru with Red Architecture and Planning. I'm the project manager for this, and I would like to ask that Paula Haynes as well be allowed to chat or
Paula,
the discussion on.
Paula, are you here somewhere?
I am. I'm right here.
We see you. Oh, good. Would you raise your right hand, please? You swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say, I do.
I do.
I do.
Would you please identify yourselves quickly for the record?
Eric Batteru.
Paula.
Paula Haynes, Freedom a la carte.
Thank you. Go ahead, folks.
All right. Luis covered it pretty quickly. It's not going to be as involved as the previous projects. On the last page there that he has currently, it's just to kind of get you a sense of what the German schmear application is intended to look like. The street view he had pulled up earlier shows the current brick situation. Ideally, this is Freedom a la carte is going to be opening a cafe on the first floor and with the small offices on the second. So the open storefront is just to engage a little bit more on the foot traffic end and get some more attention from on Spring Street. It is westbound traffic, so there is a bit of open space, but not much sidewalk to work with, but it does need to be addressed for an ADA access as the new entrance would need to have an ADA ramp on the left, and the existing entrance on the right there actually has a step up. So most of these improvements are general improvements for life safety and ADA compliance, and then just general improvements overall. The new windows on the south and west end are for the office area above, just to add in some more light. Those are on walls that actually technically have EIFS on them currently. That EIFS is to be patched and repaired, and a graphic, Freedom a la carte graphic would be installed at a later date, which we will present again at that point when that is completed.
On your elevation, you show one picture shows a continuous awning across the front. Another on your rendering there, your drawing, it shows three separate ones. Are you asking for approval of an awning over there, or what's
that was a initial concept sketch, so that was prior to some initial talks. Luis has been very good about communicating the process on this, and that concept sketch is not technically what we're proposing. We're sticking with the continuous awning without the canopy tiebacks. So as it's shown right there in hardline is the intended proposal.
So what's the material on that? It looks like, is it canvas or what is, I don't understand what it is.
It'll be a canvas.
Is it supposed to be green like you're showing in your picture there?
Yes, that's colors.
Okay, we're going to need to see, I think, what the material and the color is on that, rather than just a green on the screen there. Are there any other questions for the applicant here? Go ahead.
Yes. This is Bob. I have two questions. One is, could you describe German schmear to us? And secondly, I think I saw a reference to that, the ramp that you're showing on the left-hand side as being a temporary aluminum ramp. Didn't I read that in the drawings? I don't have it in front of me, but that's my other question.
Yeah, you are correct with the, it's listed as temporary because it's not going to be anchored to the ground. It will be fixed to the ground, but it has the ability to be removed for the future. So if a different tenant moves in after the lease is up for Freedom's spot, it's able to be removed and it will impact the sidewalk in the building. It'll be a standalone structure. For German schmear is it's kind of like whitewashing bricks, kind of like how you have efflorescence coming off from the bricks over time. This is kind of forcing it to a degree, but it's a surface treatment of the brick to mimic that effect. Whereas it's not going to use paint, it's going to use like a lime wash. There are a couple different applications out there. Some use diluted white paint, which isn't the best. They use a lime wash, and they'll try to add a more salt into the brick. But this brick being as old as it is, I don't think that would be effective.
Now, so the idea is it's white with the existing brick kind of bleeding through. Is that the idea? That'll be the color?
Yeah. Correct. It's not going to be a full white. It's intended to be like a subtle surface treatment, kind of like just a normal light wash. I'm not sure if the street view shows it, but a couple of the buildings back there have some hint of that, but it's going to be a little bit more drastic than what that efflorescence is on those buildings, but it won't be as red as the current situation by any means either.
Good. Any other questions for the applicant?
Eric, I had one. You mentioned that original sketch, the last image was an earlier version. At this point, given the lack of dimension in the sidewalk, do you intend to have outdoor dining there, or is that just prohibited?
Yes. Yeah, we won't have any of the railing. There's no intention of selling the alcoholic beverages, but we'll have like a couple temporary seats for when the weather's right. I talked with Luis. I mentioned that this process and the approval for outdoor seating were kind of tied together, so I needed to get this prior to getting the approval for outdoor seating. But yeah, the intent is to be able to have that option there.
What are the window systems? Are those metal frames, I assume, on the first floor?
On the first floor, yeah, it'll be metal framed, aluminum, clear. So,
what color in the frames?
The intent was to do clear, but I think we're going to lean towards a charcoal or bronze look just to fit the aesthetic a bit more.
And how about the windows?
Because I think clear is not approvable.
And the windows on the second floor?
The windows on those are existing wood double hung windows, so we'll have to replace them to match.
And you replace them with what? Metal, fiberglass, vinyl?
We'll replace them with wood to match. We have a certain preference. Otherwise, we're not too particular on the materiality of that. But we figured replacing it with like was the best approach.
Okay, I would like to at least suggest if we move ahead on this, that they come back with the specific on the awnings, which means whatever the material is going to be on the awning, and the specifics on the windows. What's anybody want to do?
Well, one thing I can say, Steve, actually, just a clarification, I left this last graphic in because originally they were going to come in for the large graphic on the side of the building, but they pulled that and I forgot to remove this last slide. Secondly, if you'd like, we could request that they use a window from the historic preservation approved window list, if that would satisfy your concerns about the windows.
No, I just think I want to know specifically what they're intending to do. And it sounds like we don't really have it. It says replace windows. And
okay.
I think we should just have the actual product. And if they want to use black on the, or bronze on the storefront windows in the front, I'd like to know that. Any other questions for anybody? It's up to everybody about the German Schmear thing, if people want to go with that or not, or whatever. So
I have.
Is that just on the front, or is it on two sides? And if so, what color are the other sides?
The north elevation that you're looking at there and the east elevation are both brick. The German Schmear is just for the entrance on the north side, and the south and west walls are EVIS.
What color is the EVIS?
It's a tan color where it's going to be patched and repaired to match the existing.
You're not painting it.
Will you paint it then?
If the paint is needed to get the match, yes.
Can I interject here?
Match what? What would you match then? You mean so that the patches disappear? Is that the idea?
Yes.
What are you going to match? Because you're not going to try to paint it to match this brick treatment in the front.
No, it would match the existing tan. So if
the only place you would have this German Schmear, the north facade, is that correct? Or do we have it on the west facade as well?
Just a north facade.
Okay.
Paula, did you have a comment? I see you on video.
Yes, I would prefer not to keep that color of tan. I don't think it's a very attractive color. I would rather see us paint that, existing EVIS as we paint it, something to complement the brick and what we're doing there. So I'm thinking like a gray or something that complements that German Schmear color that we're doing. I think it needs to be a beautiful building. It just needs to be beautified a little bit, and I think we can do that.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the group, please?
Steve, I got a question.
Yep.
Can we go to the site plan? It's number 1 slide.
Yep. Lewis.
Yeah. What is included in this property? I see a parking lot to the west. And by the way, I think you got that marked as North High Street. I think that's actually North 3rd.
Yeah, you are correct.
Is the dumpster enclosure area, is that part of this property too? And what looks like a concrete pad on the southwest corner, is all that part of the same property?
Yes, that was my understanding of it from the auditor site. The section of just directly south where the dumpster is, and then the parking lot are part of that. The concrete pad to the left is not ours. And then the parking lot, the pad and the adjacent building are not either.
Oh, they're not, that's not part of this property?
The adjacent building left of the parking lot. So we're starting at the top right corner. To the left, that parking lot is part of ours. And then directly south where the dumpster is part. The rest of it, the concrete is not. That's under a separate development. I believe that's under construction right now too.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Traffic has to back out onto Spring Street to get out of that lot?
Under the current stripe, the way it's currently striped, it would be, they don't back out directly into Spring Street, they'll back out. They have enough room to kind of back out at an angle and then reset themselves to get back on. But yeah, it's a tight fit for sure.
Okay. Well, that's an existing condition, but, okay. Are there any other questions?
Yeah,
I have a comment about the main, the front facade. And in the rendering that you show that has a flat canopy and it also has the awning, I really think the massing of that works very well. And I know that you're still working out your canopy detail. And so I'm just wondering if you would ever think of revisiting that combination, because I think it adds a lot to the front of your building, just adds a lot of charm and character that I think down the line you'd be very happy with. And then in terms of the German schmear, is there a way to control, as you're working on it, how much of the brick comes through? Because you might find, I think that the more of the original brick, or striking that balance between that effect and the original brick would really, I think, be more effective than maybe having a lot of it and having it, really feeling like it's coated in white. So
Yeah.
wondering if you have some control over that process as you work on it.
For German schmears, what they typically do is when you're putting on the wash, you do it in layers. So you'll do a coat here and there. It's kind of like putting on a stain on wood. More layers you add, the more bold it becomes. In this sense, it would be a thinner layer. You'd still have you'll have a lot of transparency into the brick, and you can add more layers to achieve the desired look. Ideally, we wouldn't be putting on a lot to make it a full whitewash. It's going to be at least a couple layers just to.
Why wouldn't you take that down the alley? Why wouldn't you take that down the east elevation, which is also brick, right?
Yeah. I believe the plan is to do that, Bob. Yeah, we definitely, I think the plan is to do that. As I understand it, right? Or Eric?
From what we had originally, it wasn't intended to do that. I'm definitely open to it. I think it would be a good fit.
Is your graphic, the large graphic that you're going to propose for next time, is that on that facade where there is brick as well? Or is that on the EFIS facade?
So that right there where it says Freedom a la carte on the left, that's an existing billboard that we found out that the landlord wants to keep under his scope. So the graphic's going to be moved is going to be on the EFIS side. So that way it's not even covering up the brick. It covers up the EFIS, but that's a graphic that we're going to approach the downtown commission with when that graphic is finalized.
Okay.
Guys, we need to have a motion here. If
Steve,
I'm ready.
Steve, I got a question. When I look at the site plan and I look at that the alley, I guess, that's coming up on can I go to the site plan real quick? This is kind of important. What I'm worried about is the clearance at the top of the ADA ramp with regard to the steel ramp that's being proposed in front of the building. Looks to me that gets pretty close, and I'm just making sure that we don't have a conflict there between the ADA ramp, the city sidewalk versus the ADA ramp that's being put in as part of the building.
I'm sorry, who's speaking right now, please?
Tony Slanik.
Tony.
Tony, okay, thank you.
Can we see the site plan?
Okay, so there's a question whether it works. I mean,
when I look at
the question about
upper right-hand corner there, I'm worried that there's not enough clearance between the ramp that the city provides and then the ramp that is being proposed as part of the.
I would assume they need to go to the city and get a permit for it, right? So if it doesn't work, the answer is they can't do it. Is that correct?
Correct. I've actually been going through plan review with Jonathan Van Meter, and we had this as well as comments. We have 6'9".
So from our standpoint, I think we have to assume if our question is, would we want you to do that ramp there, is if the city lets you do it. If the city doesn't let you do it, that's between you and the city. So
And he has approved it where we located it. It's 6'9" from the curb and has another 9'6" from Lozelle to the side of the ramp. That's 6'9", and then from the ramp to the north on Spring Street is 9'6".
Would it be painted to match your storefront windows then? Is that the idea?
The aluminum, yes. It'll match that. So if it's clear, it'll be aluminum.
We need to move along. We need to move along on this. Could I have a motion? Yes or no? And then as far as I'm concerned, they need to bring some stuff back to us. Specifics. Could we have a motion in some form or another? I would like to have it on the table. If you want to vote no, you can vote. But could I have a motion to approve, please?
Motion to approve.
Jana, thank you. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Bob Leverett. Okay. Now, there's a motion on the floor. Does anybody want them to do anything to bring it back? I would like them to bring back a specific on the awning. And that means colors. And I want to know what the window system's going to be and so on. I'm willing to vote for what they've got here, but I want them to bring back these specifics on here so we actually have a specific record of what they're going to build.
Also,
graphics,
blade sign as well.
Say again? Well, yeah, but that they can't do it until they come back. Yeah, they'll have to have some.
Yeah, the graphics will come
back on graphics, and they kind of have lighting. They're looking. It looks like goosenecks, but they don't have specific on that. Why don't they bring back specifics on lighting as well? Specifics on window frames, windows replacements, paint color on anything that's going to be painted, and awning situation. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Greg, coming back, does that work for the applicants? We would approve it subject to your bringing those things back to us.
Perfect.
Yes. Does that work for the applicants, Paula? And
yes, it does.
Yes. Okay. Good.
Just so I'm clear, this is Louis Tava speaking. Just so I'm clear, are we requesting that the German schmear go on the north and east elevation as well?
Yes.
It's up to whatever the motion, the maker of the motion wants to do.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so you'd have a north wall schmeared and a west wall and an east wall schmeared, and you'd have a south and a west wall painted. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the motion that would be on the floor. You're going to bring things back, and it'll be amended the way we just discussed. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Okay, the motion, you're approved on this, and you're going to bring back this stuff to us. And we'll just verify it at the next meeting, and hopefully we don't spend a heck of a lot of time on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next case, please.
So the next case is C6 20-03-017, 96 North 5th Street. The applicant is proposing to construct a 3-story single-family home with a detached 2-car garage. The design is heavily influenced from historic structures in German Village and the surrounding area. The house will be clad in reclaimed brick, which was used on the Muse condominiums and adjacent residences. The roof will be a dimensional shingle listed on the approved shingle list of the Historic Preservation Office. The garage will face the alley and use the same reclaimed brick and horizontal siding. The proposal generally meets the guidelines with regards to building design, context, setbacks, and materials. Staff would like to see a commitment to use a window from the Historic Preservation approved window list. Thank you.
Okay. Applicant, please. Would you identify yourself?
Tom Morano.
Tom, are you the only one today, please, from your group?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, would you raise your right hand? You swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. Go ahead. Who's going to lead the charge here, Tom or Louis? Louis, are you done? Yeah, you made your comments. Tom, I think you're on deck.
Okay. Can we maybe move forward to a?
Absolutely.
We keep going?
Go ahead. Oh, you want to keep, yes.
Okay, this is 96, that's good. This is 96 North 5th Street. It's currently a surface parking lot, and we're doing a single-family brick home as an infill between two existing single-family residences. 3 stories, about 2,500 square feet, with a garage, which is alley loaded off the back. We're going to do this on a crawl space so that we don't need to excavate between those two existing old homes. And massing and fenestration drawn from existing homes that you would typically find in German Village, Italian Village, etc. Not sure I need to go into a super long presentation. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. There's a page further back that shows all the elevations, that one. And so it's just trying to be careful with massing to keep things looking like a traditional historic home would in this neighborhood.
Just for curiosity, Tom, you've got 2 windows over 3 on the front facade there. Is there a reason you did that as opposed to 3, just lining them up on the second floor?
It really works with floor plan. I mean, I could, trying to look at the second floor real quick. I mean, we could probably do 3 over 3. We can find examples of both, but if 3 over 3 is preferred, that's fine with me.
Oh, I'm just more curious.
I had a question that's along the lines of what Steve is saying. And it looks like on the rear elevation on the second level, when I look at the examples of what you've shown of other buildings, I think that second story window, you can make it a little larger or even have an arched element or do something that is a little more dynamic. I think there's an opportunity there with the space you have to fill it in a little bit more. And I also, when I was studying the examples you showed of other buildings, when we look at your front elevation, I also think that one possibility, if you did decide to keep the 3 over 2, is maybe those second story windows could be slightly elongated, because it looks like in many of the, not all the examples, but in a number of examples, the length of the first story window is very similar to the second story. So those are just 2 observations I have when I look at your windows and, just thinking of ways to bring it a little closer to some of the examples you showed.
Okay. It's a little tougher to make the second floors a lot longer because I'm trying to develop some attic space. So the floor line is near the head of the windows in order to develop attic space on the 3rd floor. But certainly would be open to doing 3 over 3.
Okay, is there a motion? Any questions? Oh, hey, and you're using the brick then, okay. And then the shingle will be the Georgetown gray. What's the window system you're proposing?
Well, on the house immediately to the south, we used a Windsor window, which is an aluminum-clad simulated divided light window, wood interior. I would propose to use the same one, which I know is very close to everything that's on the historic window list, but it's not on the list.
Does anybody have a problem with?
I don't think we're constrained by the historic guidelines on this. I'm thrilled that you're building a single-family house downtown. I think it's fabulous. I move approval.
I do too. Plus, I love.
I agree.
Somehow or another, and you guys, we got a lot of design people and architects here, but somehow or another, I would like the maybe the three windows on the second floor over the 3 windows on the first. And that would be the only thing. But if somebody
Let's just do it.
Okay.
I move
The
approval
condition
with
of
that
approval.
condition.
Okay, I'm sorry, Bob, did you make a motion?
I did. I make the motion for approval with to change to 3 windows on the second floor.
Okay, is there a second, please?
Second.
Okay, any other questions, comments, anything from anybody? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None, hearing none, that motion is approved. Thank you. By the way, I like some of your use of some of the wood siding on here too. I think it's just handsome, particularly over that brick water table. And on the side of the house too, it just riches it up. Very nicely done.
you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next case, please. Tom, thank you.
Thank you.
Case number 720-03-013, 155 East Broad Street. The applicant is proposing to revitalize the 1976 24-story office tower originally designed by Skidmore, Owings and Merrill. This proposal appeared before the commission for conceptual review at the January 2020 meeting. Revitalization entails converting the use of floors 9 through 23 to residential use, while floors 3 through 8 will remain as office use. Along Broad Street, the two-story black glass box front piece will be removed and replaced with a sunken garden and a landscape public and retail plaza. The proposal generally meets the guidelines with regards to ground floor uses and storefronts and plazas and public spaces. The commission will have to determine whether the new development is of greater significance to the character of the surrounding area than the existing two-story black box front piece. Thank you.
Okay, who's going to present today, please? Oh, she's
Good morning,
ready.
this is Cindy Harvey.
Okay. Anybody else from your group, Cindy?
Yes, I'd like to also.
Who?
Tom Morano.
Oh, Tom also. Okay. Anybody else?
And Tim Schmallenberger.
Tim, anybody else? Three of you? Okay. Would you all raise your right hand? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
I do.
And would you just identify yourselves for the record one more time, please?
Cindy Harvey with Stantec.
Tom Morano, the Edwards Companies.
Thank you.
Tim Schmallenberger, MKSK.
Okay, thanks very much. Go, guys.
All right.
We've done the conceptual on this, so and we've gotten the package. We'll let the applicants go ahead and talk about it. Thank you.
Great. So just to reorient everyone, yes, as Louis mentioned, we were here in January presenting this proposal. I'll take you through some of these slides fairly quickly. The original proposal we presented in January takes a look at the black atrium box that lines Broad Street, and it looks at removing that. We've got a few before-after pictures of what we intend to do. Our proposal would remove that black atrium box and create a subterranean garden, an urban oasis, if you will, as well as line the street level with new tree canopy and landscaping. So the package we're presenting to you today has more detail. I think you'll see that there are a number of working drawing documents in there with notes and planting identified, etc. We're happy to go into depth there. Tim is on the call specifically to speak to more landscape details, and myself to the architecture. Could we advance to the next slide? So again, the proposal would take out the lower level, a portion of the lower level of the existing building, and in that red box zone is where we would have a sunken garden. Next slide, please. At grade, the black atrium box would be removed. In its place on the west side of the property would be an at-grade plaza, and that's to the left of where that sunken garden is in plan. Next slide, please. Oh, can we go back one? Oh, I'm sorry, forward. All right, this shows our lower level. So the green zone demarks the sunken garden. The reddish pink zone is is a restaurant that's proposed, restaurant space. There will be outdoor seating provided adjunct to that space in the garden. Because this is also being converted to a residential use, we have amenities for the residents in this lower level. That is in that blue zone on plan. The residents will also have access into this garden, and there are effectively 2 zones within the garden. Next slide, please. At grade, this shows what we're doing at the street level. The sunken garden is depicted with the large rectangle we were just looking at, but everything else on this plan marks being at grade. So at grade, you'll see that we have 2 retail bays on plan left and plan right. And in the middle, we have entrances to the office lobby and the residential lobby, respectively. In plan, next to the left retail bay, we are planning to have an outdoor seating area. And you'll see there's also a plaza with a sod lawn. The streets are lined with the old 1970s era street grates will be replaced with granite curb planters. The historic tree canopy will be reintroduced along those edges. Next slide. As far as materials go, these are the building materials proposed. The collage at the top left is showing both interior and exterior materials. So we're showing just how they're going to be compatible. The individual materials at the bottom of the slide show what is exterior to the building. So what you're seeing is we have a porcelain paver with a couple of different colors that complement the existing travertine that clads the building. The windows will be clear glass and will have aluminum frames that are bronze in color. There's a detail around our entrances to the building, and those are framed with an akoya wood, as well as overhang canopies that demark the entrances to the building, which have an underside of akoya soffit. Next slide, please. So a couple of sections, again, just to give a relative order of how this looks as we cut through transversely. The sunken garden is showing you at the lower level. The at-grade level shows you where pedestrians enter at these main canopies. These are cantilevered and are a significant feature on the building. And over to the right, you see that we are maintaining a plaza at grade. Next slide, please. Another quick section view in the section on the left-hand side would be the street. So backing off from the street, you see the sunken garden as it meets the building. On the upper image, what you see are canopies. Again, on the left and right are retail bays. On the right specifically would be the space reserved for restaurant use. And the entry lobbies for the residential and the office are both in the middle section where the longer canopy is. Next slide, please. Again, I won't dwell too long on this in the interest of time, but I would let you know that if you have questions specific to MKSK's planting plans, they will be able to speak to that. What I'd want to share is that what the garden will do is step down from the street edge in a series of terrace planters. These will have board form concrete, and once they are filled with the landscape material, it's expected that that landscape material will overflow those edges and soften that. The terrace planters also respect the current foundation of the former building and pay homage to that former footprint. Next slide.
Cindy, in the interest of time, can we possibly move to the commissioners asking direct questions on specific pieces of this?
Absolutely.
I have a question about your canopies in the front of the building, and it's my feeling about it is I feel that they're a little low because I feel that it truncates that monumental entrance for such a large building. So I like the way the canopies look and everything about them, but I'm wondering if when you had decided on the placement of them and the height, if there's a reason why you wanted to put them at that height, or I just want to hear the reasoning behind it.
Well,
Yeah.
before you, what is the height of the canopies, please?
I think they're probably at about 14 feet, if I remember right. So I think they are in a good scale and not as low as maybe perceived. They're working with the existing mullion lines and the grid pattern of the window.
I like the idea of having, I mean, if you move them up, you get rid of that row of windows above them. And I like that. That's a nice detail.
Okay, so you're saying that you like the idea that you have the canopy, and then above that, it almost creates like a clear story.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
I like that. Yeah. And also, I like the idea that you've got, it goes across 3 bays in the center, and then just 1 bay in the on either side. And I mean, frankly, if you tried to move the where it's just 1 bay wide, if you moved it up any higher, it might almost seem too high.
I think it would actually. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the portion is trying to work with the pedestrian.
I actually, frankly, I like it. If you're saying roughly 14 feet, I mean, that's 5 or 6 feet above. That's a high canopy, really, frankly. Okay. Okay. Any other questions then from anybody?
I have a question. What's the accessible route to the lower level? Is it through the office lobby?
Yes. Like I said, there are 2 lobbies. There's a residential lobby and there's an office lobby. And both of those have elevator banks. So both respectively can get down to that lower level.
And is that lobby open 24/7 or?
There will be restricted access, and what we had discussed in our last meeting was that sunken garden would be open to the public, and as you may recall, there's a stair from the street that goes down into that space as well. But the intent is really to make that something that's safe, and so it will be restricted access available as the businesses are open and operating.
Okay.
Okay. Are there other questions, please?
I have a landscaping question. We're taking away the wall along the street and replacing it with plant materials. And it looked to me in the planting plan like there weren't very many trees along that area. And maybe I'm looking at the rendering right now, and it looks like there's a pretty dense planting along the street. Not the street, but along the sidewalk. And I just wondered has that been reduced, or is it, do we think there's enough there? Can we get to the site plan?
Yeah, there's a planting plan on L5.01.
On the PDF, do you have a page number?
L5.01.
Yeah, but that doesn't show the plantings along the sidewalk, does it?
Now they're separated by, E-plans and stuff. Yeah, the street trees along both Broad Street and South 4th are actually, there's actually more trees than what there is, is there today. Plus they're in the city mandated guidelines for streetscapes with the large planters from that end. Along, I think what Bob's referring to is along the edge of where the existing building is. And this plan here shows, the number of trees, across there. So for instance, along Broad Street, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 trees along there. Some are ornamental, some are more shade oriented, medium type trees. And then that edge is obviously has a rail, at it. At the waterfall overlook, there's a glass rail. And so we're trying to make it as transparent as we can. So as you walk along Broad Street, you can stop here and and look into the into the garden from that end. But yeah, there's roughly 7 trees along that edge. There's at least there's 4 trees along the south 4th edge. Plus there's the trees that are at the street.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I just wanted to make sure that was still the case. Are they going to go in at a pretty good size?
Yes, we actually right now the Edwards Companies is we're contracting with a specialty tree nurseryman who is actually out looking for specialty trees. And so the idea is that a handful of trees in here will be large specimens that really kind of set it off day one from that. And so we're kind of we're somewhat limited to what we're going to be able to find. But the idea is that when you look in here, this garden looks like it's been here a while. That's the goal.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim.
Absolutely.
Are there other questions for the applicant, please?
I had a quick question about the railing, the glass railing that goes around the garden. And is that railing, does the glass just terminate at the top, or is there some type of small cap or something that is running across the top, horizontally across the top of the railing?
The idea is that the glass sits between frame and that would be a clean edge at the top.
Okay, so just a clean edge of the glass at the top.
Are there other questions for the applicant?
I'd like to move approval.
Okay, there's a motion to approve. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second, who said second? Danny. Okay. Any other questions or comments from anybody? Anything from the audience? Anything from the applicant again? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say aye. Hearing none, that motion is approved. And Louis, you've got the, that's again a unanimous vote here. Okay, thank you very much. Looks great, very exciting.
Thank you.
Next case, please.
We're at 1027. Do you want to continue at this point?
I think, what's everybody feel like? I personally am able to keep going, and I'd like to just run it right along.
I agree.
Yeah, Bob's go. Janet, Tony.
I'm good.
Okay, Mike. Good. Let's roll with it. We're just going to keep going, Louis.
Okay, Steve.
Okay with that?
Say again.
Steve.
Yes.
I have a scheduled meeting at with Urban League.
Okay.
Because I had told them quarter till, because I thought we'd be finished.
Okay, that's fine. I think we'll still have a quorum, won't we? So maybe we'll just keep going. Danny, just drop off whenever you're done. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to the next case then. Next case is
Okay, so the next case is case number 8, DC 20405, 66 South Grant Avenue. The applicant is proposing a series of murals along Library Park North, populated with the works of artist Kirk Mangus. The guidelines state that the integration of art in larger development projects is encouraged, such as placement of art in public spaces, parkland plazas, and sidewalk cafes. Works of art should be designed and installed so as to not damage or visually obscure contributing buildings or building elements. The proposal generally meets the guidelines with regards to public and private art.
thank you. Is the applicant here with us somewhere? Who's going to present for the applicant? Hello?
Let me look that up. They should be here. Let me see.
Who are we looking for? Do you know?
John Rewald with Pizzuti's here.
Okay, John, good. Is there anybody else from Pizzuti or with you?
You there?
David Goff with Lupton Roush.
Okay. Is David with us? I don't see his picture. I don't see him visually. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move this ahead with, I'm sorry, John. Let's go ahead. Can I swear you in, please? Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
And say your name for the record, please.
Yeah, John Rewald with the Pizzuti Companies.
Thank you very much. Why don't you go ahead and present, and if Goss shows up, we'll go from there.
Yeah, certainly. So this is a follow-up. We were approved back in January of 19. This building's under construction. It's topped out and scheduled to be delivered here in October. As you may or may not recall, when we did present, we identified 4 locations on the building that could potentially accommodate artwork. The one that we committed to was our Library Park North elevation, which is what we're here today to review. This is where our garage is. The rest of the building's been designed to engage the pedestrian with walk-up units. So what we're proposing is a series of murals from artist Kirk Mangus. He's an Ohio artist. These specific works are from the Pizzuti collection, part of a series he did about Alice in Wonderland. Just a little background on Kirk. He celebrated artists both in ceramics, drawing, and painting. He was the head of ceramics at Kent State from 1985 to 2013 when he passed away. His artwork can be found internationally in Seoul, in Finland, and in several galleries throughout the United States. So certainly a very accomplished gentleman here. What we're intending to do is mount these. Each mural is about 12 foot by 10 foot and will have a 3-inch diameter. And each panel is made up of smaller panels. So each piece is assembled from 6 smaller panels that will be bolted together. This art has been scanned in successfully already and will be digitally printed on composite metal, routed to the reverse side, formed and bonded to a tube frame. We've also altered our lighting pattern here. It's really meant to read like a gallery. So these images will be illuminated at night. They're mounted with a secure locking cleat hardware, so it should really feel like it's almost a gallery. But these certainly have some scale to them.
Quick question. Speaking of scale, the drawing that we're seeing, your kind of elevation drawing, is that drawing to scale? I know it's a dumb question because the answer has to be yes, but is that to scale?
Yes,
okay.
Yes,
Does anybody have a problem with this? I think I love it. I think it's very fun and interesting. Anybody have a question?
I have one question about it. In the submittal, you have text that goes with the drawings, with the paintings. And I'm wondering if you had thought, right, and I'm wondering if you had thought of adding excerpts of those to the wall in a creative way or something that would be at a scale for children, because you have this wonderful connection between these murals and the library, and these are from a classic children's book. So I was wondering if there was any thought of taking some of those descriptions and adding them in some way that would look artistic and engaging.
Janet, thank you. That's a great comment. And we have discussed adding text via plaques by each photo. So that's still in development. But we do intend to add something there as well. And the synergy between the library and Cristo Rey School adjacent there, having these works of art with a literary theme, we think makes a lot of sense.
I'm gonna move that along. I think I'm gonna get. If you wanted to do that, you could probably get that approved administratively through Lewis. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Well, first of all, this is Danny. I think this is absolutely fantastic. I'm very excited to see this. One of the things that you also may want to think about, that we did not think about at the Longstreet Wall was some type of really hip QR code that didn't take away from the art itself, but also gave it context. So you also knew what you were looking at. So it was sort of in partnership along the same lines with what Jana was saying. But this is fantastic. Thank you so much.
Okay, good. Could I have a?
I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. I didn't get who made the motion.
Mike Lusk made the motion.
Okay, thank you. And then now I don't want to cut anybody else off. Are there any other questions or comments on this? By the way, John, how long do you guys see this particular thing staying up? Just decides he wants to put something else up, or?
You know, it's meant to be a permanent installation, and
awesome.
Yeah, and you know we're taking steps here as well to protect against UV, graffiti, things like that. You know, it's meant to be here long term. So.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? I'm going to move this along quick. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say aye. That motion carries. Thank you very much. Looks great.
Yep. Thank you all.
It'll be good. It'll be fun.
Terrific.
Okay, next case then.
For clarity for me, there was no condition on that to include the plaque. Is that correct? We're just approving as presented?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
But I think it's a great idea. It'll be fun, and my guess is they'll do it. But by the way,
Yeah,
I'm not.
thank you.
I don't want to speak for the group. Do you need to make that a requirement? Anybody? Okay, let's go to the next case, Louis. Thank you.
Right.
So the next case is a conceptual review item. It's at 555 West Nationwide Boulevard. The applicant is appearing before the commission for conceptual review of a 3-acre public park. It will be located along the east bank of the Olentangy River from the end of West Nationwide Boulevard to Village Drive. The park will include new walkways, a boat ramp, kayak storage, green space, native trees, a rain-guarded bike share, seating, and pedestrian scale lighting along the walkways. The project will coincide with the development of the new pedestrian bridge, which was previously reviewed by the commission, Crew Stadium, and Confluence Village. The guidelines stress the need for regional scale public open spaces, which integrate with a variety of cultural and recreational facilities. The public realm should be enhanced with improvements that promote good design, long-lasting building construction and materials, and attention to detail. The proposal generally meets the guidelines with regards to design principles in plazas and public spaces. And Brad Westall should be here for the presentation.
Okay, Brad, would you raise your right hand, please? Brad Westall. Is Brad with us? Do you know, Louis? Or
I do not.
Is he checked in? Okay. By the way,
Hold on, Louis.
we had already seen this. Haven't we done a conceptual on this already?
No, that was just
we did.
We approved the bridge, and the park was kind of in the background, but it wasn't like we didn't go into it in detail.
Well, should we wait then if he isn't here? Let's keep moving. Oh, he is here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Brad, would you raise your right hand, please? Brad, are you all set? I can't see you. I can't see you.
Yeah, he's there. He's got his hand raised.
Oh, thank you. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do. Brad, that's your key. Would you say I do? Is he muted?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thanks very much. Brad, why don't
we don't see you?
Yeah, I can't see you either.
Okay. Is that better?
No.
I see you. I don't see you on Zoom. It has to do with the view. You probably have to click on the grid view to see him, and maybe click over in order to see him. But he's there. He's on video.
Okay, so let's go ahead. Why don't you just let's keep this rolling. Can you walk us through this pretty quickly? I think we've kind of seen the idea, and let's go from here. Thank you.
Appreciate it. A sketch of that. I'll just walk you through the layout.
Again, this is the east bank of the Olentangy River. It ties into what you saw in February as approval of the bridge, the pedestrian bridge, the Twin Arch that ties into the end of Nationwide Boulevard. I wasn't certain at Recreation and Parks if we had a conceptual plan here. We had one for certificate of appropriateness. I'd like to, at least I'll leave that question on the table, but at least Lewis and I, when we talked, saw this, as a conceptual review. It's pretty simplified. On the lower right, you see the bridge, you see the pump house and the street intersection. You also see a series of pedestrian walks heading from Stadium Drive on the west, or the north, excuse me, down to a new boat ramp that will be below the what is called the pump house. That's been abandoned for some time. And you also see, our features on the plaza. We call that the Wedge Plaza, near edge of, which includes the kayaks, bike share, and micro-mobility staging for what's going to be a pretty active community area there. That is, a concrete plaza. As well, on number 18, which is right next to the bridge entry area, we have a transition space that really kind of, sort of separates the park and the bridge and that, hardscape, if you will, with a compacted gravel public space. And, the rest of this, of course, is open lawn. We wanted this to be as simple and as useful, it's a narrow property, as possible for people. As you know, this will be a large multi-use family and employer facility, and we wanted to make sure that we accommodated two things primarily. One, some green space. Two, access to the river and to kayak storage done in downtown, and ways to get around. It's going to be heavy, but of course. So to try and tie all those together in a limited amount of space, this is what we have. And you're right, you did see some of this, but at this point, we'd like to move forward. I'll entertain any questions that you may have.
Brad, this is Bob. You said the pump house is not in use, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Why are you keeping it?
I would keep it personally, if that's a personal question. If it's a design layout, that was a former utility structure. It still has the and things from the early 1900s, if you will, up through about 1960 within it. It's a 3-story concrete building, but we at Recreation and Parks do not control that building. That is, the purview of other departments. And looking at the reuse of the building.
Well, that might have, I think that should be coordinated somehow or another, whether you guys control it or not.
I had a question about the, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
You can move on through some slides if you want perspectives. We have several that you can walk through. But go ahead with your question.
Oh, my question? Okay, I am wondering the boathouse for the kayaks and the location to the boat ramp. Do you feel that that is a little bit of a distance, or was there a reason why you want, I'm assuming you wanted to place it there because that's near your plaza area and your park benches, but I'm wondering if that is a long walk to take the kayaks to the actual ramp.
Yes. Back up if you would, please. Right there you see on the, there we go. On the left is the storage, and there's the ramp to the right. Any farther down towards the river that we move this storage, number one, and we won't there. Number two, it's about as the same, if not, less than you would see went to any public boat ramp on the Olentangy.
would be normally carrying my kayak anyways. Not really different.
Okay. And I also wanted to ask you for the walkways, the concrete walkways, is what you're showing now, because I know this is a conceptual review, are you planning to um, have these walkways just large expanses of concrete, or are you thinking of doing something that has some detail in it or pattern or maybe some natural aggregate? I'm just wondering in terms of the walkways, because they are pretty prominent and wide, and at least from the renderings here, they're very simple, and I'm wondering if that's the ultimate goal, or you were planning to do something a little more decorative or unique with them.
Good, a large amount of walkway to access everything. What we're going to do, I believe, is buff wash concrete for, the main thoroughfares, and it will be articulated. I don't think we've gotten to the control joints or a saw pattern yet that would sort of bring out some that at this particular point, but we certainly want to. I think your point is well taken there. And we may use exposed aggregate. We do prefer exposed buff wash because it has been used a lot downtown and it works really well as a good non-slip surface, and it has a traction to it.
Okay, that sounds great. Whatever you do, it just seems like you've created such a beautiful park, and there's an opportunity here with the walkways, but it's great that you're thinking about that and that this is still schematic, or it's conceptual, so there's a lot of opportunity to explore what you think is best. So thank you.
This is a great connection from the new Confluence Village to the park to the river. I'm excited about it.
Hey, on that note, I just wanted to add, Brad, functionally, this seems great. It's going to be an awesome node. And maybe when you come back with the detail, I'm starting to be curious about how the materials you select, the light fixtures you select, how they relate to the Confluence Village vocabulary, or not, or distinctively not, because this is public green space. So, I think that'll be something we'll want to understand, materiality versus what's sort of happening in Confluence Village. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does, and I'm excited about that too. It's a potential right here that we tie together the municipal light plant, which has been a pretty fabulous renovation,
right.
A new pedestrian crossing. I think the pump house is going to get, honestly, I think that's going to be redeveloped. And of course, you have the language of the stadium and the new, multi-use development that's coming in there. So, frankly, Ted, I appreciate your interest in it. I'll bring it back to you. And also note that our job is relatively straightforward here. I like that fact, by the way. We don't have to reinvent a wheel here. We have so many good looks to work from.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah, Brad, I think it's awesome. I think you guys did a great job.
Okay, I think it's great too. Does anybody, again, from a conceptual standpoint, is there something? What I'm hearing is that the pavement, and I'm talking about the walkway surfaces, is something kind of good and interesting. Obviously, we'll see the finalized planting plan, but the idea there's a combination of walkways, of some natural vegetation, of some ornamental trees, of some lawn areas, and I agree totally that this that pump house thing is really an opportunity, and kind of anchors the bridge, makes sense of everything. Plus, it also kind of is at the end of the roadway there, which is kind of fun, the end of Nationwide Boulevard. Okay. Yeah. Is there anything else that jumps out at anybody that we need to discuss from a conceptual standpoint before we move on? Anything else?
Just one thing really quickly. Have you thought of putting some benches along those walkways, because you do have a number of them at your plaza area? But I'm wondering, because you do have a lot of pathways, if that was going to be part of when you develop your site amenities.
Yeah, while I'm answering that, you can go back to the plan view, guys. That's number one, just to kind of relate to that. We have obviously, yeah, there we go. Thank you. We have limited space down along the walkway. From the far north to the river, I know it looks different in a rendering, but that's approximately about 40 seconds of walk right there at the most. And I think what you're saying is well, that doesn't mean it can't be a couple of benches on the, I guess that's the east side. And I want to consider that because I think you raised a good point. We wanted to be naturalized with stone slabs, and we'll certainly look into that. I think that's a, you know, as a visual moment. The first concept that I brought you guys included more space to the north. I just want to be clear here. And when I say north, that's off to the left edge of the drawing. It is not shown here. That's about 20% of the area to sort of follow along with the development that happens along Stadium Drive. But I want to be perfectly honest. This is a master plan for what we can afford to do to get us in the door and get this park functioning. Once we have that and we can work with the developer of the site a little more closely, we'll come back at some future point here on that, let's call it the little missing piece at the north here. But your idea about benches, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Great. Hey, this is very exciting. Looks nice. We'll look forward to seeing it. Let's move on to the next case then. This is, believe it or not, I think this might be the first removal of an overhead walkway.
Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself from this one.
Okay. Is Fritz here with us? Is he going to be the presenter? Somebody from the city?
I'm here.
From the county.
I'm sorry, from the county. I beg your pardon. Fritz. Who do we have here to present? Fritz?
This is Fritz Crozier, County Engineer's Office.
Great. Would you raise your right hand, please, Fritz? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. Okay. I don't know. What's there to discuss on this one? Anybody have a question or comment about this? They want to take the overhead skywalk out?
Do you have video capability? This is Christopher Lohr.
I should. It says we cannot display your video. Make sure your camera is shared in your browser and it is not used in other applications. Then try again. It was working earlier.
Bob, are you representing this case as well?
I am, yes.
Okay. So if Fritz
I can explain.
Okay.
I can explain what's going on and then not comment on anybody's comment. So the bridge has some maintenance problems, and the security is such now in the county complex that they're no longer using the bridge or where it connects into the municipal court building. The municipal court building will be renovated and a new courthouse is anticipated on the Dorian Commons site. So one of the first steps here really is to remove the bridge. And it's really that simple. We're taking the bridge out. The municipal court building is limestone, and the bridge goes in through what would be a window opening. So we're going to restore the limestone and put in a window that matches the other windows in that building. At the other end, the Carnes building, the sheriff's building, we're just going to cut the bridge off at a logical point and fill in the opening with insulated metal panels that look like other things up on that roof. Neither one causes any kind of an exiting problem or egress problem inside the building. So the biggest deal here is closing the street and getting the bridge down.
I'm going to just see where we are on this before we go into all the aesthetic considerations here. Does anybody have a problem with this going away. Okay, can I see, no, if that's the case, could I have a motion then to approve the application? Could I have a motion from somebody, Mike or Jana?
Yes, motion two.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, who's that? Tony. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Bob Loversage is recusing. Are there any comments from any? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Thank you. I got back on here.
I'm sorry, say again?
There's Fritz.
This is Fritz Crozier. I just got in on my phone. I apologize, but I appreciate everybody.
Okay, no problem. We're just about to vote on this, so assuming you don't have any prepared speech, then we're going to move on. All those in favor of approving the request, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say aye. That motion carries. There's no opposition here, and you've got that one, Lewis, done. Thank you very much, Fritz. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Okay, next case, please.
All right, C11 20-05-003, 83 Normandy Avenue. So the applicants returned it to the commission for approval of modifications to a previously approved single-family residence. Staff requested they return due to the significant number of changes made since the commission's previous review. The original proposal was approved at the May 2018 meeting of the Downtown Commission. The redesign includes changes to the window lintels, entrance masonry, second floor windows, chimney, and a redesign of the gables, to name a few. The guidelines state that building materials should be of high quality and durability, and that new construction should be influenced by the pattern of nearby contributing buildings. The proposal generally meets the guidelines with regards to building design, materials, and context. Thank you.
Okay, who's the presenter on this, please?
Tom Morano.
Tom, let's see. I think you've already been sworn in, haven't you? At least twice. Why don't you just, if everybody's fine with that, meaning Chris and Lewis, why don't you just go ahead, Tom?
Okay, I'll wait till the slide pops up.
All right.
I think maybe the easiest way to do this is to kind of toggle between this first page and the next page. So this is a project that was approved a year ago, and my client is interested in making the entry bay a bit more pronounced. And so what we've done, if we go to the next slide, is we've taken that entry bay and pulled it forward 12 inches and allowed the stonework around the lower level door to grow and encapsulate the opening on the second floor, and added a rounded bay window, which is within a bedroom on the third floor. Client is also interested in moving away from the blue painted brick to a more of an off-white creamy painted brick. And the enlarged bay over the entry really necessitated re-spacing the other three dormers on the roof. The other change is the roof material was a gray slate, and we want to go to it's a Ludovici terracotta flat tile. So that's going to be the roof material, and the rendering shows it a bit too orange. It's a little bit more brown than what shows in the rendering. Those are the primary changes on the front elevation. There are some minor changes on the rear elevation, but it doesn't really face a public right-of-way. So I don't know if you want me to go through those. I will.
Does anybody want to hear about changes to the rear?
No.
Okay, then let's keep moving. I think we're all set. Any questions for the applicant here?
I move approval.
Okay, there's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions, comments, anything from the commission, anything from the public and the audience? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Thank you. That motion carries, Lewis. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next case, please.
2013 20-05-005, 106, 108, 110, 112 East Lafayette Street. We reviewed this proposal back in January. The applicant is proposing a multifamily structure on a 0.08 acre surface parking lot fronting on Lafayette Street. The proposal appeared before the Commission for conceptual review in January. The Commission requested they conduct further study of the west elevation to add more interest along 3rd Street. The design calls for a 4-unit, 3-story structure with parking on the 1st floor. Each unit will have 2 bedrooms, a rooftop patio, and 2 garage parking spaces. The applicant has modified the proposal to improve the facade along North 3rd Street. The building now provides a face to the street with emphasis on front door pedestrian access. The guidelines do, however, ask that new construction along 3rd Street have a minimum height of 5 stories. This one has 3. The proposal generally meets the guidelines with regards to building design, setbacks, parking, and rooftop structures. Thank you.
Okay. And who's the applicant for today on this case?
It'd be Julie Bullock and Connie Klima.
Okay. Are you both there? I see Juliet Bullock.
Connie cannot make it today.
Okay. Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say aye. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
We have, since the last submission, I would comment that it's probably actually a 4-story because we have those stair structures coming up to allow access on the roof terraces. We have addressed the east and the west facade. That was also a request of the commission. Moved the entrance of the end unit onto that west facade, which I think was a suggestion of the commissioners. We also looked at kind of planting and addressing, having some potted plants and plants along basically all 4 facades. This backs up to a parking lot on the north. I do think they're going to be required to have some screening as well, so that would help in terms of planting. We also, at the request of the commission, changed the brick specification. The client had wanted a fairly traditional brick, and you asked us to do something a little more contemporary. So we've picked a concrete oversized brick, which I included a specification, a picture of it basically. It's like a 4x8 concrete brick. I think that was pretty much it on the modifications. We will, we will submit a later landscape plan as well.
Okay. Questions? You're built right out to the lot line. How are you going to do landscape?
We do have a bit of actually 3 feet on 3 sides, and then plants next to the front entrance.
Okay.
And there is actually quite a big tree lawn on 3rd. From the sidewalk to the actual building is about 5.5 feet. So that's allows us to get a little bit bigger species along there.
And you're telling us you're going to come back on landscaping then?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Commissioners, we have this before us. We've seen it. She was asked to do certain things. Oh, tell us about the lintels over the windows. What does that mean?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I heard a discussion about the lintels were changed. Is that a change?
No.
Okay. So it looks to me like a kind of a set of rowlocks above and below along the west side and above the garage doors. Is that?
There's brick on the base and metal siding above. I don't know if you remember. I also had submitted with my application.
What color mortar are you going? Is that the color of the brick you're proposing? That red brick?
Yes. I have to say I'm a little I'm a little worn out with all the black and gray buildings. So we wanted to kind of allude to the traditional warehouse style, but maybe go back to more of the reddish color, and then the tan metal siding I had submitted last time, just because I think there's a lot of gray and black windows and gray buildings out there right now.
What kind,
Agreed.
what mortar color would you use with your brick then?
I typically like just a little bit lighter than the brick,
A little bit which?
lighter than the
Okay.
brick. This brick will lay up with pretty tight joints, so it's not going to be super evident.
And how about the, what are you planning then on the metal color?
I submitted that last time. It was circled in the brochure, I think, that I submitted, but it's kind of a tan color and the windows are bronze. So just trying to do a more contemporized version of a warehouse building, alluding to more historic colors, but in a little bit more contemporary way. It's kind of the concept.
Okay.
Mark, can you go to the materials page, please?
I think we need to know what color you're planning on using and the more, I'd like to actually have that specified.
There's a color page. There's the brick. So fairly darkish, you know, but not.
Okay. Okay, and then
I think she's done what we asked.
yeah, but I'd like to know what the color on the siding's going to be, and just to get the specifics on here.
I did present the siding color last time, but I will.
You know what? I just don't see it here, and I'm sorry, I do not remember.
That's okay. I'm trying to find it here, but my mouse fell on the floor and broke, so I'm trying to get it with my other computer.
What color did you say the window systems are going to be?
They're that dark bronze color.
Okay. And are those true divided lights in the windows, or are those?
They would be simulated divided light.
And are they vinyl windows?
No.
What are they?
We're looking at either a Pella or a Marvin right now. Ultrex or I forget the Marvin one.
An aluminum clad wood window.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. The brochure here. I can put that whole package together again on the colors and finishes and stuff.
Well, and it seems to me like, from your elevations, is the vertical siding on the top, is that going to be a different color than the siding on the second and third floors?
Just a shade lighter is what we had proposed.
Okay. Well, what's the pleasure of the group?
I think she's done what we asked. I move approval.
Okay, there's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's on the floor. Okay. What do you want to do here? Everybody ready to vote? You're just going to approve it the way it is. So we don't really know what the siding is, and we don't know what the mortar color is. Everybody's comfortable with that?
Could we just submit contingent upon staff approving the mortar color and
Yeah, okay.
would that make it?
Okay, well, that's where we are. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 All those opposed, say aye. Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It would just get us back. I'd like to make sure that we have a record.
I will do
If we
that.
submit it, and Lewis can find it, then that's fine. If you've already submitted it, I just don't remember what it is. I'd like to see both pieces of what you plan to do for the siding and specify a window. If it's Marvin or Pella, those are both very good quality. That'd be nice. And I think you get something on a project like this out of a good quality window. And you did get us the brick sample. That's good. So I think we're all set on this. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your time. I appreciate you extending.
Well, thank you too. I'm sorry it took so long.
Thank you.
Okay, next case, Lewis.
Case 14.
You're muted.
I got it. Thanks. 2005006 311 West Long Street. The applicant is proposing to construct a permanent roof canopy at the North Bank Shelter House to replace the temporary tent structures they currently use. The canopy will be comprised of exposed structural steel columns, which would match the existing steel trellis in color and feel. There will be an exposed steel roof framing system, ceiling fans, and canopy hung vinyl sides. The design guidelines state that new construction should be influenced by the pattern of nearby contributing buildings, and that awning and framing systems should be compatible with building design. While a permanent shelter may be appropriate at this location, staff has some concerns regarding the compatibility of the proposed canopy with the existing North Bank shelter, and would like to see more elements of the existing building incorporated into the design. Therefore, the proposal does not meet the guidelines with regards to building, design, materials, and context. I had asked the applicant to submit some more detailed drawings, and they submitted them to me yesterday. Those should be in the updated packet. They show a gray color as opposed to the white and some other updates. So that'll be maybe new for you to see, but it'll be in the display that we show right now. Thank you.
Okay. Who do we have today for the applicant, representing the applicant, please?
Megan Stewart with Triad Architects.
Okay, Megan, are you just you?
I'm Lauren Turnage with Triad Architects.
Okay. Anybody else other than you two?
That's it.
Could you raise your right hands? You swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If so, say, I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. Go ahead. Thanks. Do you want to just tell us about the project?
Great. So we're here today representing the Recreation and Parks Department, and this project is really to replace the temporary event tent that is there, that is up on site from spring to fall every year. Louise did contact us, and we have some responses. We think we do meet the requirements of the design guidelines. Will be influenced in our context by the existing colonnade, by existing roofs on site, by the structural memberships. We're influenced in our overall plan of the canopy by the existing brick paver pattern on the plaza. We do have some site constraints that limit the form of our project. And height, we're going to be matching the height of the colonnade and the trellis structure. Setback doesn't really apply for our project, but we'll discuss site constraints as we move forward that we'll be respecting. Lighting, the lighting on the project will be a combination ceiling fan with a LED unit, which is matching what is used inside the pavilion building. And materiality is steel and metal roofing, which again, we're pulling from the site. And our goal is to make it as transparent as possible. And again, with sustainability, we have LED fixtures. So if you can move to the next slide. So this is our site, North Bank and the pavilion. Next slide. So to the south, could you go back 2 slides? I think it advanced. Okay. Could you go to slide number 3? Okay, next one. All right, so architectural site plan. The new canopy is indicated that's new to the south side of the North Bank Pavilion structure. As you can see, there's an existing brick paver layout that's at a 45-degree angle to the existing pavilion. There is a fountain, which is a design constraint. And right underneath our new canopy, there is a basement level and a pump room for the fountain. So where we place our vertical structural columns, we're being very careful when we do that to make sure that we're not disrupting existing systems. And then on the east side, the brick paving transitions to, it has a grade change to the lawn and grass. So again, the shape of this is really holding to the constraints of the site. Next slide. Okay, so here's existing conditions, and in the bottom right hand of the slide, that's the existing colonnade with exposed steel trellis above. So essentially our structure is taking elements of that exposed steel trellis, the wide flanges, and the glow light that you see, which is on every single pier of the colonnade, would be removed, and a new wide flange would go right on top of that pier of the colonnade, and that is where the canopy would extend. Next slide. So as you see,
Do the rooftops match? I mean, does the existing canopy flow onto this new one then? It looks very flat to me. Is this just flat, or is there some pitch to it?
There will be a slight slope towards the south, but essentially it will be in line with the structural steel, and as we move forward to the elevations, we'll be able to see that. So there's also the canopy roof material that's proposed is a standing seam metal roof, which matches the other secondary buildings on site. And again, we will be using wide flange members and tube steel, which we have examples on site. Next slide. Here's the plan of the canopy and the proposed banquet seating. As you can see in the light dashed line, there is a pump room and basement below. We did hold, if you can see on plan, there are some wide flanges that are columns that are in line with the brick piers, and those are pushed to the perimeter as much as possible, but still in line with the structure of the colonnade. Next slide. And then the overall structure, so we will have at the perimeter tube steel, and from the colonnade we'll have wide flanges going out to that tube steel at the perimeter. And then to match the existing steel trellis in the direction that the wide flanges are going, stepping to the south will be multiple wide flanges to support the roof. It will be an exposed deck that will be we're looking at a dovetail deck, which has very tight fluting, and proposed locations of the ceiling fan. It's an exterior grade fan. Next slide. So here on the west elevation, you can see the canopy in line with the existing trellis. And on the right-hand side, there are both for color and for shape, we have existing tube steel that on site that runs into the piers. We have wide flanges that are sitting on top of the colonnade and the piers. So also this structure, when it's not used for events, will be open. And the seating will be removed. The seating is just shown for context right now, but when there are events, the structure is going to act as kind of an armature for some temporary tent panels that, so this is a benefit now to the people renting the facility, that the Parks Department will be able to provide this this amenity and provide the tenting structure as well. Next slide. This is just the east elevation showing similar things. Next. And then from the south side. So essentially we're, excuse me, right in line with the existing structure, and height-wise, we're in line with the existing roofing structure. Next. So for look and feel, we are essentially trying to match the dark, the steel. Next slide. And apologies, I think the canopy here, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. It's shown a little too high and out of scale. So it really should, if you go back one more slide, this is showing it more correctly. So the steel is going to be right at the top of the colonnade, the brick piers.
So Megan, the roof is solid, but the trellis is open, so you get wet on the way from the building out to the new structure. Am I reading that right?
That's correct, and that's how it's functioning now to get to the temporary tented structures. There are essentially doors that open up, so the wall of the glass pavilion takes up to be somewhat of a covering to get into under the canopy.
Is there any reason why the standing seam metal roof couldn't continue over that trellis?
We were trying to respect the architecture that's already there and keep as much of it as possible. So I feel we took the design approach that the fewer pieces that we could touch, probably the better. So the only thing that we're really disturbing on the existing building is taking away those globed light fixtures. So we wanted to maintain that character of the existing.
I'm wondering about, it seems to me that I'm just a little bit kind of troubled. This is a very, and I'm going to use the wrong term, but it's a very rectilinear kind of building, the one that's there. And now you've got this thing that comes out, and we got angle. I get why you're doing the angle, and I also get that you're trying to get a certain amount of seating out there. And this is kind of a fine point, and it just jumps out to me, but I'm wondering if you could, by the way, I think it's a great idea if you could figure out a way to connect this thing from to keep the weather out of the transaction here. But I'm wondering if you could put, are you proposing to build, and I'm looking at sheet, well, I'm looking back up on your, it says furniture plan. Can you scroll back up a minute, Lewis, where you show the tables there? Because and it's a view from down, looking down. Now back up the other way.
Page 7.
It's page 7, yeah. So I'm wondering, are you planning on building a whole set of new columns, or see along there? Look at the upper part of this. Where you got dashed lines, and you show 6 columns along there. Are those new? Are you building those new?
So at the very north part, those
inside the dash line.
Inside the dash line, those 6 pieces are the edge of the colonnade, and those are the existing brick piers at the edge of the colonnade. So those are existing. And then if you follow, if you go to the second one from the west and you follow it down south, there's a new column at the edge.
I see that, yeah.
Okay. And then the next, follow it south, there's a new column. So
yes, I got it. Okay.
There's only 4 new columns.
So here's what I was going to ask. I wonder if this makes any sense. And this is, I'm one of these kind of, my wife says I've got this kind of German sensibility and I line everything up. But I wondered if you came down and starting over on the left, where you come down to your first column, it's on an angle. If you had that and that looked, and it were twisted so that it worked on the line instead of on the angle, of the column above it. And then you came over, and I'm wondering if you could bring down from that same column there, another column on the south end there. So if they're all along that line where you say banquet seating there, if it runs through it there, and there's a line along there. So if those were kind of lined up, and then we're kind of rectilinear on the same line as the existing building, so that they kind of, instead of kind of following this angles around and all that kind of stuff. Now, I realize that might leave you with almost a kind of a cantilever of a certain amount going to the south, but it might look in a way as though it fits with the existing building maybe a little bit better. You would be lined up on the four and equidistant from those four center columns there as you come down to the south there.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Steve. Our original proposition to the owner had all of our columns in line, right as you were describing.
Yeah, I know it gets its way. Is that the idea?
They preferred the functionality of having as clear a space as possible under the canopy. So they asked us to push those two middle columns to the perimeter.
Okay. Well, I don't know. You might also twist those ones on the outside if you could, so that they line up kind of with the one. I don't know. Again, that's something that and by the way, I happen to like this building. I think we're fortunate. This is kind of a nicely designed, very kind of interesting building. By the way, I'm delighted to hear that they think they need to add more seating there, because that means somebody. But to the extent that you could kind of keep it, feeling like the original thing, the more you do that, the better. But that's just a thought from me. Anybody else have any thoughts or comments?
Yeah, when we were talking before about, I think you were talking about a trellis, because I'm not quite sure where this is on the plan, but the trellis and the fact that it is open and you have to go through that to get to the new covered addition. And of course, you want to do as little as possible to maintain the integrity of the building. I'm wondering if you thought, or if it's possible to fill that in with some type of a skylight or clear material, so that it maintains that openness, but at the same time, you're able to offer a covered area. I mean, I'm not sure if what I'm saying makes sense with the issue, because I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at here.
Well, but I think what we're saying is, if you can, and it goes right back to Bob Leveridge's comment, you even if you got to walk through the rain right now, if you could, that would be something you could fix, I would think. If there were a way to get around the weather thing. So,
right.
So another weather-related question is, I have some concern about the plastic sides. And what do they look like, and how are they attached? And because I don't see anything other than that one little photograph that shows how that's going to work.
I think Bob, we're still working through the exact details of that. But essentially, we're going to have something fixed on our, or integrated into that steel piece to be an attachment for those vinyl panels at the bottom of the vinyl panels. Or, excuse me, top of the vinyl panels, bottom of the steel.
Those are things that go on and go off, right? I mean, we didn't hold them up, I don't think, on that. If somebody thinks they want to approve that, could you bring that back when you figure that out?
Sure.
Okay, Bob, would you like to see those?
Yeah, I would. I'd like to be more enthusiastic about this, because I think it's a great idea.
Good idea too, and
Do you have a manufacturer that's going to let you do a standing seam roof that's that flat?
We're still looking into that as well. So, I mean, the rendering and the image shows it pretty flat. I think we do need to pitch it a little bit more towards the south to make sure we're getting the right drainage.
So where's the water going to go?
Into downspouts, and then it's going to, because we're also doing a site civil submission to make sure that it's going into sanitary now, because this is a covered area.
But the downspouts, if they're at the far south, there's no column for them to run down or anything, is there? Oh yes, I'm sorry, there are columns.
Two columns
out
at the
there.
south.
I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry.
So the hope is that we're going to align the downspouts with those last two columns towards the south.
Right.
And connect to sewer. Yep.
And they'll go underground then, right? Under the pavement? Okay.
Yes.
Guys, any other questions or comments on this? I mean, we have an application here, a request.
For me, it's we have such a grounded statement in architecture related to the existing building, and this thing seems like so much more flimsy in comparison to what it's being added onto. Is there a way to sort of beef up the columns, the support columns or something, to kind of give it more of a grounded feel?
To maybe match the massiveness of the building that's there has some meat to it. I mean, look at the size of those walls, on either end of the building.
Right. I think
surprised to sort of see that lack of being grounded, considering how heavy the existing building feels.
I think we were taking the approach that the really heavy grounded elements are on the east and west. And as you look through the building, especially from Neal Avenue, we wanted it to feel light because there is glass and black mullions and black structure within the pavilion, that we wanted that expression to be an extension from the pavilion. So we were trying to be as light as we could. But I do appreciate the comment. Maybe there is, even looking at this view, you could imagine taking that last pier of brick and moving that out. And I'm not sure if that helps us with the overall lightness or with the view through. I think that was an important piece that we were trying to also respect, was making it as light as possible so we could focus on the view through the structure.
What size are your columns? Offhand?
Those are, we're still designing them, but we're looking at W12s. At least the depth of the columns will be 12 inches.
That's pretty substantial.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever consider making the roof glass?
We did. Honestly, I think at this point it's cost considerations and making sure we're keeping the project on budget.
Even if the whole thing were not glass, if there were some, punches in there, that could be interesting, actually. And you could put them in those three center columns there that would just light up that underneath part.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can do that without killing the bank account.
I like the fact that you're keeping it very functional, and you're saying, okay, I'm not trying to emulate what is there already. But I do feel that it's a fine balance between keeping the lightness, but also having the structure look like it is substantial enough or not a temporary structure. So I think with the columns, it's a little hard to tell, but maybe just making sure that whatever that thickness is, whatever that member is, that it's achieving that it's not getting too heavy, but it still has a sense of permanence to it, and that this is this is something that's substantial.
Are those columns gonna rest on any kind of a base?
Right now, no, but based on the comments that I'm hearing and looking at kind of the water table of the lighter colored stone, maybe maybe we pursue taking at least that dimension of the lighter colored stone and putting kind of a more substantial base underneath the steel.
That might be a good idea anyway, just in terms of rust.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little concerned about the steel wide flange just going down into the pavement.
I think that too would also help step it down from a steel standpoint.
And by the way, it might not even be, you know, you might get some kind of piece of cut stone or something that's limestone that you could put it in there, so it's the same material, but you don't have to kind of have the mason come in and build a little post out of rocks and everything. Well,
Yeah,
no,
go ahead.
Because you've got, I mean, I'm looking at this thing. You've got lintels on there that are cut limestone on the west side, and the caps on the end walls, and so there would be context for something that those things rest on. Those.
Right.
What's the pleasure of the group here? We need to move this along.
I really like the idea that picking up, you know, the limestone base that you see on the building and then adding that to the base of the column really does give it something to rest on, really does give it a detail, but a contemporary interpretation of it. And I would be all for that. And then also maybe thinking about what you talked about earlier, possibly part of the roof being glass, or finding some way ultimately to be able to get under that covering and not be, and not get wet with bad weather. So I think those things are important. But I like the fact that the color is darker now, and I like the simplicity of it and the function of it.
Yeah, this color is much better. Yeah, don't you think too, ladies?
Oh, yes, and it was never our intention that it be white. I think it just time crunch.
Okay, what's the pleasure?
So it seems, Megan, what's your schedule? I mean, it seems to me there are a lot of unresolved things here, and this is awfully important. I mean, does it mess up your whole project if you come back with all these things resolved next month?
We are moving at lightning speed and trying to get this project done by next April. And so, I mean, I'd be happy to do a conditional approval with the things that you mentioned and bring it back to the group, or the base, or something on top of the trellis for the weather piece.
Okay, can we approve it on that basis? And then is that going to mess you up if we approve the rest of it? In other words, the layout basically that you've got, and then you're going to come back with those details. Can you bring those back in 30 days?
Say that again.
Does it mess you up to bring those back in 30 days for the approval on those specifics? Or do you want to send it around to the group and we'll see what we can do?
I would love to send it around as we have it.
Why don't you do that? I think I don't know if we're allowed to do it, but I'm gonna say we're gonna do it that way. So does that work for everybody? Okay.
Yeah.
What's the pleasure of the group? I have somebody do a motion, please. A motion, please. Ted.
Move to approve.
Thank you. And
Based on
with the relook at the base, and the relook at the at the connection there, so we keep the weather out, and then you're gonna maybe look at your alignment of the posts so that they kind of relate to the columns, so they relate to the building, and then
we'd like to look at glass in the roof.
Say again? Yeah, that's what I said. I'm sorry, I meant to say that. Yeah, the roof, the connection there, however it is. Oh, and you're going to look at whether you can add some, just from the standpoint of doing some, adding light to that thing, which I think you're thinking about. It would add to that transparency, because that's a building with lots of light in it. It can be really, it can make the difference, as opposed to just having this kind of dark canopy, that kind of sticks out. And by the way, you please feel free to blame it on the downtown commission when you go back and they say we don't have another nigger. And we'll have them call Lover's Itch. So, so Ted, that's Ted's motion, I think, then, right? With all those things.
Yeah, did Lewis get those conditions?
Lewis, you got all that stuff?
Yeah, so we're going to take a relook at the base, relook at the connections to keep the weather out, alignment of the posts, and glass in the roof.
Yep. Covered for everybody?
Yep.
Is there a second? And thank you, Ted. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other question or comment? Yes. I'm sorry. Did somebody want to say something?
I do have a question.
Yes,
So,
please. Go ahead.
Just so I'm clear. So this isn't a conditional approval. We expect them to come back with these elements. Is that correct?
Yes. And what we're going to do, we're going to have you send them around to us. Okay. Because I think we have a consensus of what we want here. And then we'll just nod on it. We'll say good. And then they're off and running. Okay, Lewis?
Yeah, I'll look into that. Perhaps we could do that. Sure.
Okay, good. We've done that a number of times, and effectively we're approving it, but we want to see these tweaks. Megan, does that make sense to you?
It makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay, with that, are there any other questions or comments? I know this makes Lewis nervous, but we'll work through that after the meeting's over. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say aye. Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much.
So much.
You've got this, ladies, and we'll
Thank you.
shortly. Thank you. Okay, next item here is 21 East. That's a conceptual. Guys, this is our last case, so I really appreciate everybody doing this. It's great job. Okay, let's go, Lewis.
Last case, 20-05008, conceptual review, 21 East State Street. The applicant is appearing before the commission for conceptual review of exterior modifications and streetscape improvements on the 21 East State Street building. Portions of existing building cladding and glazing at ground and second stories will be removed and or modified, and the new facade system along South High will be recessed slightly behind the existing facade limits. The streetscape improvements for this project include new granite curbing, concrete sidewalks, tree planters, and street lights. Design also accommodates the potential for outdoor seating along the street for future business tenants. The main entrance of the building is emphasized with a large field of concrete pavers. The guidelines encourage the preservation of downtown's building stock. Building owners are encouraged to conserve and rehabilitate historic buildings, and additions to historic buildings should be complementary and not detract from the building's essential character. The landscape and streetscape improvements generally meet the guidelines. However, the exterior building modifications do not meet the guidelines with regards to historic reasons.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, well, let's turn it over to the applicant. Who is here for the applicant today, please?
Daniel Ayers with MBBJ Architects.
Okay.
And CJ Scheibel with Valstone Partners.
Okay. And are you Mike and Lob here too? Are you for
yes, I'm here.
Are you going to speak?
Dan is going to speak.
Okay. Would all those who wish to testify today please raise your right hand? And do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
Okay, would you both identify yourselves then for the record, please, for Lewis?
Daniel Ayers with MBBJ Architects.
CJ Scheibel with Valstone Partners.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, applicants, thank you. Go ahead.
All right, so.
By the way, excuse me, just a second. This is a conceptual hearing today. We're not going to take any action. You're just going to hear comments from the Downtown Commission. And what we do is I encourage everybody to, if you have any kind of issue, problem, thought, just throw it out there. So with that, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys pushing through today. Definitely a first for having to do this, and great opportunity to be able to present this this project to you. So go ahead and move forward to the overall site view, or overall view here. There we go. Stop on this one for a second. So the project is located at East State Street and High. There is currently two buildings that are actually interconnected here. We have the historic Beggs building, which is to the east facing State Street. That was built in 1926 and then modified in the 1990s with a new top. And actually the base of the building was renovated back in the 90s when the new tower was built. The tower, which fronts mostly on High Street, was built in the late 90s and has pretty much been unmodified since it was built. You'll see just real quick, when you look at the streetscape there along High Street, there's not a lot there. We have 2 trees and a couple of lampposts along the street frontage. And then along State Street, very similar, not a lot of landscape and overall pretty open streetscape. Go to the next. So what we're going to propose and review first is the overall site plan updates. All of these design elements that we're looking at for the streetscape improvements are part of the downtown, within the downtown regulations. If we start on State Street, to the right, to the east side on State Street, we've added some bicycle parking, bicycle racks in that area. We have the main entry into the original Beggs building, which would be the primary entry for office tenants into the building. As we move along State Street, we'll be adding a couple of planters, which are the granite curb planters along State Street. The corner zone, which has been updated recently, is the brick pavers. We're looking to see how much of that can be retained. But then as we turn down High Street, we are looking to add planters with those granite curbs all along the west side on High Street there as we go down. Keep going. So we'll try to get through this pretty quick. I know we've been all going through. There's more detail to each of those areas. Go to the next. And this is just a little bit more detail on the different aspects of lights and trash cans that will be trash receptacles around. Next. More detail. So these were just some of the sections starting along High Street. A, B, and C are all cut from High Street back to the face of the building. This gives dimensionally the space that we have that we can provide that is all within city standards to provide both from a pedestrian and potential of retail fenced in dining area outside. Go to the next. And this is a little bit further down for B and C. Again, with whether it has the outside seating or no seating, you can start to see the dimensional space that is allotted on High Street. Next. Now moving over to State Street, this is at the main entry, which is section D. You can see the overall space and it'll be an updated paver in that area. And then just a typical section on State Street for section E. Next, yep. These are the existing elevations of the overall project. You can kind of see on the base of the building the slight difference in material color from the lower piers and the main tower of the Beggs above. Again, that's part of that modification that was back in the 90s. And then continued along State Street towards High Street to your right and that entry point. This is on High Street overall elevation of the existing. You can see the 2 trees and lamps along this is the current situation with Fifth Third there. So this is our proposed upgrade to State Street. We are upgrading the windows within the first 2 floors of the project along State Street and enhancing and opening up the main entry into the original Beggs building, working within the geometries that are currently there. The rest of the facade and window glazing will be upgraded, will be as clear and as create as much opportunity for views in for the retail spaces along here, along State Street. And then if we turn towards High Street, one of the key key things that this building has is driving all of the original piers down to the ground, creates a very difficult retail frontage for retailers. So we wanted to provide some openness to this facade, pull the facade back to expose the main structure coming down, and provide opportunity for both signage and visibility and entrance off of High Street, to give activation to High Street and to give a better opportunity for those retailers along High Street. So these are also showing no upgrades to the street front. We're really just trying to show the building face. This elevation does not show the potential plantings that would be along this street for clarity. And if you go, the next couple are slow to load, so you can jump past these. They're just the CAD elevations of State Street. And the next page, I apologize, those are a little bit slow to load. And we'll get to the rendering views. There's two perspectives after this. And overall plan, yep. So this is the main entry on State Street. We're standing on State Street looking to the southwest. The main entry columns, which would be an aluminum panel column cover in a lighter gray. And then it's a darker gray aluminum panel system that wraps that angles back to a storefront window wall behind. All the mullions would be an aluminum snap cap storefront system with aluminum spandrel panels. And if you turn the corner on the next page is the final view, or this is the other view towards the main entry on State. And then this is the view looking down High Street. We're looking south on High Street here at the now new aluminum covers and aluminum surround for the retail. So yeah, just looking forward to hearing your input and opportunity to continue to move the project forward.
Okay. Who wants to go? Commissioners, this is a conceptual hearing.
I'll chime in on streetscape, landscape stuff. I think this is great to see such an important visible corner get upgraded to the new streetscape standards, especially High Street. My only question, Dan, was on State Street. Would it be possible? I'm thinking about the two flanking sides of your entry on State Street. Would it be possible to add a couple more curbed planters and trees? I know you showed bike racks on one side, but maybe they're broken up somehow, just to kind of frame that entry and get a couple more trees on State Street.
Yeah, it's definitely something we could look at. Yeah, you can see just the edge of that parking, or the bike parking there in this rendering to the lower left there. So we can take a look.
I have a question, and it has to do with a comment and a question that has to do with the street main entry. Are you, first of all, are you motivated by trying to create, I know you said on the High Street facade, you really want to create more openness, especially for retail. On this main entry, are you also looking, is the goal to establish more of an open feeling into the main entry?
Yes, more open, both visibly, but also by these columns are currently wrapped in stone. So bringing them down to aluminum will reduce the size, which again creates that transparency into the lobby.
I'm wondering that my feeling, and this is my personal feeling, is that I wish I could see this being achieved, trying to use more of that, like maybe Art Deco motif or nod to the Art Deco or the building itself, or integrate better with the building. And I'm also wondering, I know you mentioned that the facade that we see now, the entry we see now, is not the original from the 1926 building, and that it was revised in the 90s. And I'm wondering how different that is from the original, and also if the building is protected, with the historic register, so that you can actually change the facade so dramatically. But I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I feel that you could still achieve this, but with a vocabulary that I think is exciting and modern, but also integrated with the original design intent. So that's my comment on that. And I am interested what the 1926 original opening was like, original entry was like.
We can provide that image. It was a single bay wide, so it wasn't 3 bays. This is currently 3 bays wide. So the original was only a single bay. So it was substantially changed back then. But we can provide the previous photo.
I can weigh in a little bit on the historic aspects of this. There's really nothing historic left of the Beggs building except for the terracotta facade above the second floor and below the addition at the top. So there's a piece in the middle that has non-original windows in a pattern of the original. And there was not much left historically here. I don't think that we, as much as I would like to see preservation, this isn't really preservation. I'm excited to see a refresh of this building because I think it's a very important building and a very important location. And I think the general direction makes a lot of sense. I do agree with Jana, though, that maybe some of this could have a little bit more of a nod to the detailing of both the original building and the Fifth Third building. I think the materials, the dark aluminum, I think that's all good. But if it had a little bit more of a sense of detail that tied it to the historic building and to the addition, I think it'd be better.
It's a good comment. Appreciate that.
I don't think it fits with the building, whether you're talking about preservation or not. I think it's just you've cut this square out of the High Street side, and then you've cut this long line along the High Street side. So I don't care for it. I think it just, I think it lowers the quality of the building. It just makes it look bad from my standpoint. I don't like it.
I wanted to just say one concern I have about it too is that unfortunately, at least from the way the rendering looks, it looks a bit add-on. Like this is not an integrated building. That this is something that came after and doesn't look like it. Sometimes you look at buildings and you say, oh, back in the 1950s or 1960s, they did this, and now this just looks very out of character, and now we're going to try to take it off and make it more harmonious in some way, even though we're upgrading it and making it more of a contemporary expression. And I think that I really appreciate what you're doing, opening it up and addressing some functions, but trying to integrate it more with the original, have real historic significance at this point, I think would be a successful approach.
Nope, that's good. And I think we will show a couple of the previous, some of the dark metals and the way the frames work around the openings. We're actually taken a bit from, and some of even the signage bands that were previously a darker metal on the previous building will show. So the idea is that it's still building off of some of those ideas. So we'll bring that for the next and kind of walk through that a bit more.
Okay. Any questions from the audience here? Anybody else have anything to say? Okay, I guess we're all set then. You've heard comments.
Perfect. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Downtown Commission then, let's see, anything else you want to go over, Louise?
The last thing that you have to do is enter the staff approvals into the formal record.
Okay.
So get a motion and a second on that.
Everybody had a chance to look at those. Obviously, I don't think we know what those are, but they're mostly admirals, graphics, and some stuff here.
Yeah, nothing major.
I just want to say thank you very much here. I know this has turned into a, it's a sign of the times here. It's noon, and that wasn't the idea, but I think it's good we got it done, and I really appreciate. I'm glad everybody had the time to do it, and thank you for sitting here and going through this. So, good job, and sure appreciate it, everybody. And talk to you soon. Anybody have anything else?
Well, I do need a motion and a second to enter those into the record.
You
moved.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good. Anything else?
No, just on behalf of the city, thank you very much for your time this morning and taking the time.
I would assume we're not going to have this long and dragged out a meeting the next time through, so we had a little accumulation. So again,
well, I don't think it took us a lot longer than normal, other than that we had such a big agenda.
Right. I agree.
Well, we moved through some of them. I think we got lucky. I personally think those Franklinton projects are just wonderful. I mean, they're really cool. And so it's good. Good. Well, thanks very much. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.